My microphone wasn't even unmuted. How you guys doing today? Good to hear, man. I originally restarted the stream because I saw that my latency was still set to normal, and I wanted to be able to interact with you guys without having to wait 30 whole seconds. How's it going, Gamescape? I think the latency is now about 4 seconds or so, which is so much more doable. I'm doing great today. I haven't done anything all day. I'm still kind of tired from my trip a week and a half ago, so I've just kind of been resetting. Thanks for asking, though. Of course, Zoran. Great Saiyan Man, S rank for you. You always have some hot take when you hop in here. I'm actually kind of on the fence about the new Dragon Ball movie, simply because I really liked the animation style for the Broly movie. Like, it felt really good. And the trailers for the Dragon Ball Superheroes movie feels kind of jank, kind of like Berserk 2017. So I'll watch it. Leave it to Zoran. So this list is going to have all the characters I feel are relevant. Yeah, the Broly animation was top tier. It was so smooth. I really hate the pseudo 2.5D CGI that animation studios are going with for a lot of things nowadays. Sometimes it works, like with Attack on Titan and Studio Mappa, I believe, does Attack on Titan. It worked for them. Like, they kind of, it was jank at first, but it got ironed out. But if you look at something like Berserk, oh boy, does that look bad. And that's kind of the vibe I got from the new movie trailer. It was too good. Really hurt your eyes, huh? Well, we can't have that. Yeah, I agree, Notch, but Dragon Ball fans just gotta take what they can get at this point, I suppose. That's why I really liked Totally Not Mark's Dragon Ball art series. Like, that was so nice. Because you don't really realize how much the like kind of like the grit filter really works for the Dragon Ball series as a whole until you get to Super and see how clean it is. And I know last week I complained a lot about the. That's a good question, Zoran. I don't know. Also, my little sub goal down here didn't update. Oh, it's because I don't have stream labels open. My bad. The goal for 4,000 is unclear as of now. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm open to suggestions. We have? When did that happen? Now I gotta check my studio out. Oh wow, yeah, we're 4,002. Well, dang. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Well, I'll have to change that. So let me go ahead and just turn that off for the time being. I'll do that. You're even cooler than you knew. Hey, we're getting there. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Yep, it's road to 5K, and then it's road to 10K right after that. I feel like things will probably speed up a bit when we hit 10K, because that's when I feel like you have enough subscribers to really let the algorithm just kind of carry you. So the song in the background is called Two in Harmony, and I actually made this. I can link it in chat real quick. $5K tattoo reveal. There you go. That's that that was funny, Zoran. My tattoo, my anime sleeve is finished. I'm just giving it some time to heal before I actually show it off on stream and stuff. So you guys will probably see it soon. It'll probably be in the next video I do, which will be the last video before the Three Kings stuff comes out. Can I explain my channel name? Somewhere Past Never. That's a good question. So I used to be a big fan of Shel Silverstein's book, Where the Sidewalk Ends. And it was kind of an abstract title, and the cover kind of reminded me of Korn's album. Which album was it? I can't remember which album it was. The one with Freak on a Leash in it. With the imagery is like of a girl standing at the end of like a ledge, and it always reminds me of Where the Sidewalk Ends. And so in a weird way, the name simply kind of follows the imagery that has always stuck with me. And it's really hard to explain, and I'm doing a terrible job of trying to explain it. But I guess the most succinct way to explain the channel name comes from the idea that people kind of give up on their dreams really quickly, and especially when they hit what they feel is a dead end, because everyone's dreams are like, they're valid, and dreams are hard to manifest unless you put the work in, right? And a lot of people come to the conclusion like, oh, this dream is never going to come true. It's never going to be this or that. And my response to that is always, your dreams and how you reach them kind of lie on the other side of never. Like they rely somewhere past the idea that they're never going to happen. You have to kind of break through that, Dreams come a long way, not today. Yeah, it's something that I kind of realized early on whenever I started writing, because like I mentioned last week, I think it was, I've written 3 books, and one of my original dreams was to be a career author. And dreams always feel really far away when you're at the starting line, but you have to start somewhere. Like, dreams are like a staircase. They're like a spiral staircase. You don't have to see the entire staircase to know that the staircase ends. You just have to take the first step. And what I tell myself whenever I hit that wall, or start beating myself down and start getting to a point where I feel like I'm never going to get where I want to be, is that slow progress is still progress, Like, you'll get there. You just gotta keep moving forward. So that's where the Somewhere Past Never comes from. It comes from a lot of introspection and a lot of telling myself not to give up. And I know that sounds dramatic, but I was a dramatic kid. Brave, a lot of culture, nonetheless. Namaste, and it sounds like a nonchalant way of saying plus ultra. But yeah, plus ultra is a very, very succinct way of saying all the stuff I just said. That's a good philosophy to have towards dreams. Yeah, I like to pass this stuff on to the people around me, because everyone has dreams that they feel like are unobtainable, And like, you just gotta push a little harder than you normally would, and you will get there. That's literally all it is just pushing a little harder than you otherwise would. Let's move here. Give me a second, guys. I'm trying to give you guys some more jams to listen to. There we go. So I'm going to move. I have 3 monitors and I still feel like I don't have enough space. Okay, let's see. Came here for a tier list and we got a motivational speech. Yeah, dreams are hard to accomplish. I learned from experience. Yeah, but they're worth it when you get there. Even if you just taking steps towards any dream or goal feels good. Like, I never thought that I'd be at 4,000 subscribers, and I know that's not a lot to anybody else, but it's like, hey, you know, you take what you can get. Keep working at it, and also know that one doesn't need to accomplish their dreams in the traditional fashion. Agreed. I absolutely agree with that 100%. So before we dive into this tier list, I'm going to go ahead and say that there are a lot of missing characters from this. I put this one together, but I feel like I just put a bunch of characters I felt were relevant. So I didn't, as much as there are tons of characters in like the Tournament of Power, I decided to kind of omit most of them, because most of them are completely irrelevant one-off characters that I don't care about, and they'll just land in D tier anyway. So I figured I would go through Dragon Ball Z, go saga by saga, and I picked out all the characters that I felt were the most necessary or the most interesting or the most just well designed. So we are going to just kind of go row by row, and we're just gonna do what we did last week and just chat it out, talk about the characters we do and don't like, so on and so forth. Also, none of the characters from, well, not, I can't say none because Janemba's here, but most of the characters from the Dragon Ball movies also won't be here because I haven't seen the movies in a very long time. Hey, what's up, mystery schooler? I almost said scholar. No original Dragon Ball characters because I haven't seen original Dragon Ball in over 15 years and I wasn't going to binge it just for a tier list video. So I almost put Tao on here because I remember Tao the most, and like him and King Piccolo, but I don't remember enough about them to have what I feel is a valid opinion. Please let PyCon slide. We'll get there. We will get there. So yeah, most of the characters from the movies won't be here because I haven't seen the movies in a very long time, and the movies that I have seen recently I haven't even seen in their original format. I've seen them through Team 4-Star, and that's not a fair judgment. So with that being said, let's hop right in. So we're actually going to, do you guys want to go like row by row, or do you guys want to go saga by saga? The only thing that matters about Mercenary Tao is his transportation. Yeah, didn't he like throw a tree and jump on it? He used the Breath of the Wild speedrun tactic to get around. King Piccolo is still a G. You got, okay, so we got 1 for saga, 2 for saga by saga. Yeah, Team 4-Star definitely made the movie characters more memorable. So I feel like that wasn't a fair judgment, so I just left them out. Except for Janemba, because I really like Janemba. Mercenary Tao's trying to get through Hyrule quick. So we've got 2 for Saga by Saga. Figure we can just go ahead and hop in with the arrival of Raditz. So Raditz, oddly enough, I know Arrival is the very first episode of Dragon Ball Z, and it actually is the very first episode of Dragon Ball Z I ever saw. I saw Dragon Ball Z for the first time on Christmas Day because I was staying with my dad. He picked me and my siblings up because my parents were separated at this time, and I remember he got us a Sega Genesis, really showing my age here, but he got us a Sega Genesis, and at some point, let's get on over here. At some point, he was like, hey, when you wind down, do you guys want to watch cartoons? And I was like, yeah, I love cartoons. Let's watch them. And he pops in the first episode of Dragon Ball Z. And I was like, what is this? Holy crap, they're beating the crap out of each other. Can you show this to kids? And it just kind of took off from there. So Raditz was my first introduction to Dragon Ball Z. I think Raditz is C tier just because he's an appropriate way to start off Dragon Ball Z, I feel. Yamcha will Yamcha be below F rank, like his own bracket below F that says Yamcha perhaps. We should have a bracket on here that just says cadaverific, but fun fact, Yamcha's won more fights than Chaozu. So I feel like if anyone should be bottom trash tier, despite how much we dunk on Yamcha, it's probably Chaozu. But yeah, I think Raditz is an appropriate way to start off Dragon Ball Z as a whole, especially considering how, I don't want to say different, but different Dragon Ball proper was. Because Dragon Ball proper had, from what I remember, it was all about the Red Ribbon Army, and there was some fantastical stuff, like when Goku threw a rabbit to the moon. But this really sets up like what to expect coming forward, like the whole Saiyan saga, the whole Goku's, you know, an alien and space, and opens up a whole universe. And Raditz is a really solid introduction to that as a character. Could take him or leave him, you know. He's basically Sonic the Hedgehog, but meaner. It is more fun to dunk on Yamcha, you're right. So with that, I will put Raditz in C tier, and people seem fine with that. Let's move on over to Piccolo. I think Piccolo is an A tier character. Piccolo has some of the most solid character development in the show. And what keeps him from being S tier for me is the fact that after a certain point, they don't give him much to do. Piccolo's basically there to get beat down and show how strong the villain is. Like, he has a great fight with 17. He has a great fight with Cell before that. And then everything after that is just the Goku show. Yeah, the true father of Gohan. Yeah, that's also another reason why he's up here in A tier. I like how in the black community, everyone just accepts that Piccolo is spiritually a black person, and I think that's hysterical. Piccolo has a great attitude. I really like Piccolo's design. Yeah, the Yoshi deserves to be up in A tier. I really like Piccolo's design because before we get to the Namek Saga and every other Namekian that shows up, I feel like his design really stood out. Of course, there was King Piccolo, but I like Piccolo's turban and his football shoulder pads. I don't know what that's called, but he's got a lot of rapport with every character, despite the fact he's never, from what I recall, he's never fought Vegeta, which I would have loved to have seen. I love the relationship that he forms with Gohan. Gohan and Piccolo's relationship is probably the most wholesome thing in the entire series. I wish Piccolo got more spotlight, but that's also why I'm glad him and Gohan are getting spotlight in the new movie, despite how I feel about the animation style of the new movie. So Piccolo gets to sit solidly in A tier. Are they really called just shoulder blades? I'm gonna call them football pads. That seems funnier. His caped football pads. If they give Piccolo more to do in the future with Super, I would probably be willing to bump him up to S tier. But as it stands, I really hate the fact that Piccolo always becomes the punching bag or the guy that's just kind of in the background when he used to be baller. So that's Piccolo. Let's move on over to the Saiyan Saga. And we will start with Nappa. So Nappa, okay, Nappa's tricky because Nappa as a character, like vanilla Nappa, is about on par with Raditz in terms of how interesting he actually is. But what makes it hard to rank him is that Nappa in Team 4 Stars Dragon Ball Z Abridged is incredible. But looking at it, you know, from a non-biased perspective towards Team 4 Star, I don't think Nappa's all that memorable. Yeah, if we go off Team 4 Star, he's top tier. But if we're just going with vanilla Nappa, I don't think Nappa's all that interesting. He put the beat down on everyone in like the C team. So, you know, Krillin, Tien, Yamcha. Actually, Yamcha got taken out by Cyberman. But he was mostly there to show the power gap. And I wouldn't in good conscience be able to put him in D tier because he's about as interesting as Raditz. Raditz just has a better introduction for the series as a whole. Nappa's D tier. He does nothing beyond getting killed by Vegeta. I mean, he beats down most of the Z Warriors. He punches off Tien's arm, which was baller. You know, Chaozu exploded himself trying to kill Nappa. Nappa's like, whatever. He beats down everyone. That by itself is worthy of being above D tier. He was cue ball and allowed us to see a bald Saiyan. Yeah, that's true. He did allow us to see a bald Saiyan. He was used to show Goku flexing, but he also still was an imposing threat to the characters that weren't Goku. This is what makes him tricky, because like, he's not very interesting. I take offense to that, Miles. I think Nappa is way less interesting than Raccoon. I think the beatdown of the other characters is what makes Nappa... It's what saves him from D tier. I will say that. But yeah, Goku's flex on Nappa was top tier. So let's move on over to Vegeta. Vegeta, hands down, is an S tier character. Simply because of all the growth he goes through. He goes from being this pissant of a Saiyan prince to actually having a whole ass family and actually caring about his family in his own way. Like, look at how he was interacting with Beerus just to prevent him from destroying the planet because he cared about his family and his wife was pissing Beerus off. That was fun. That's something you don't expect Vegeta to become when you see him in the Saiyan Saga. You don't expect to see him becoming a family man later on. Vegeta he's one of those characters I hated at first, but not in like the bad character writing. I hated him because like I knew he was like meant to be the antithesis of Goku. His growth both as a Saiyan and as a person are what make him fun to watch. Like, honestly, his best character arc, or his best character moment for me in Dragon Ball Z was when he gives Trunks a hug for the first time in the Buu Saga. And Trunks is like, what the hell is happening? And then, of course, he knocks him out so that he could sacrifice himself to attempt to kill Buu. That was a that was a Hiei type moment. Like, that's how big that was. And it really solidified his growth overall. And then, of course, in Super, we get to see him interacting with his family. And we actually get to see him warming up to Goku more in Super, especially in the Broly movie. Like, they kind of play off of each other really well in the Broly movie. But yeah, Vegeta is just a top tier character. Yeah, Buu Saga is my least favorite as well, but that moment was really good. I like when he dyed his hair. Vegeta isn't exactly Shadow, but he gets developed. Yeah, the fact that Vegeta gets like long form storytelling, it's great. Alright, so after the Saiyan Saga, we've got the Frieza Saga. And we will just kick on over to the Ginyu squad. So we're gonna start with Ginyu himself first. And I think Ginyu's B tier. Just because he's flamboyant in a way that makes him fun and memorable. And I really enjoy his ability, like his body snatching ability, because it's kind of horrifying when you think about it. And it also raises the question that this probably isn't Ginyu's original body, you know? Which it makes it horrifying to think of how many bodies he's sifted through in his reign under Frieza. So, you know, him injuring himself and then trying to capture Goku's body was kind of cool, because it's like, oh snap, if he inherits Goku's body, like if he snatches it, he's going to be Goku strong, but an asshole. And that could have been really bad for the universe. I like that concept of Ginyu being a threat because his technique is so good. Even though it backfired, like it does have like a glaring weakness that he can't just revert if he needs to. But yeah, his personality, the fight itself, those are what make him interesting. That's what makes him B tier to me. He was underdeveloped, I will agree with you, but he's definitely more interesting than Raditz and Nappa. So he gets to sit in maybe low B tier, low to mid B tier, I'd say. So from there, we're going to go on over to... We'll go to Recoome, who I also like Recoome a lot. He's kind of just dumb and fun, and he beats the hell out of everybody until Goku shows up. It's a it's an interesting dynamic watching him beat up on Krillin and Gohan, who's an actual child. And then of course he bodies Vegeta. I think Recoome is probably the most interesting of the Ginyu Force. Especially for if we omit everything about Dragon Ball Z Abridged. He's the most interesting, hands down. So let's move on to Goldo. Goldo's easily D tier. Easily D tier. There's nothing interesting about Goldo except for his technique to like kind of like pseudo stop time or whatever it was. I thought that was neat, but aside from that, yeah, he's... Should we make a rank below D tier that's just for like legit trash? Because I feel like D tier is still saying like meh, like they're serviceable, like they do what they need to. You know, we're gonna give Yamcha his own tier at some point, but I'll just leave Goldo in D tier. He gave me Hunter x Hunter vibes. He was always scared. Call it the Goldo tier. The Yamcha tier. Oh my goodness. Let's see who else. I feel like Jace and Berta are also D tier characters. Like they're just there to fill out the ranks, honestly. I don't think any of those three really bring much to the table aside from filling out the ranks of the Ginyu Force. They're just there so that Ginyu has more people to boss around, so that our protagonists are outnumbered, because they like bring their own things to the table, I guess. Yeah, Berta gets outclassed instantly. That's because this was in the era when like power levels were kind of indicative of how fast you were, and it's like I'm glad that the power level thing got dropped all over the series, because it became one of those situations where like the numbers don't matter when they hit a certain threshold. Like at a certain point, a number is so big that it just doesn't matter anymore. I you know, I am willing to put Jace at high D tier because he's more interesting. You know, we'll put Goldo down here. So you know what we'll do? I'll make sure that I organize these so that like the closer a character is to the letter on the side, the higher the tiers. So like the further down they are, or God forbid if they're in the second row, you know, that's how we'll roll. So we all know Yamcha's going to be at the very bottom of D tier. unless I actually feel like making a separate tier for him. But yeah, those three are just kind of there to get flexed on by Goku. Like Jason Birder, I mean. We're just gonna move on. Yeah, Goku coming to Vegeta's aid was pretty baller. Let's move on to Dodoria. I feel like Dodoria is probably C tier because Dodoria is more interesting than the rest of the Ginyu Force. Especially because we get to see Dodoria and Zarbon interacting with Frieza outside of just kind of taking orders. Like there's rapport there. And I like that there's a cruelty to Dodoria. Dodoria, you can tell, enjoys killing on Frieza's behalf, and that adds to the personality. It adds to the characterization of Dodoria. Design-wise, I couldn't care less. Vegeta nailed it when he called him bubblegum. Dodoria is just spiky bubblegum. That's all Dodoria is. So, as far as that goes, Dodoria, I don't think Dodoria is as interesting as Zarbon. I feel like Zarbon is probably high C tier, maybe low V tier if I really push it. But Zarbon has probably one of the more interesting designs of all of Frieza's henchmen. I like the green hair. I don't really get the arm warmers. Or why they gave Zarbon thigh highs. I guess he was just ahead of the trend. But yeah, Zarbon in Abridged is hysterical. I love Zarbon in Abridged. I like all these characters in Abridged. Like all the Z characters. I like that Zarbon got a transformation that put him on par with Vegeta for a little bit. Until Vegeta got his Zenkai boost and came back and beat the crap out of him. Zarbon is definitely high C tier, but is C above Raditz and his double Sunday. Name a Zarbon move. That's fair, but I feel like Zarbon is... you kind of got me there. Is Zarbon more interesting than Raditz? Raditz is more interesting to you guys? Alright, I'm willing to put Raditz above Zarbon then. So Raditz is still leading C tier. Alright, so moving on to... I didn't put Nail in here, because I feel like Nail doesn't get nearly enough screen time to really warrant him being here. And again, my opinion of Nail is kind of colored by Dragon Ball Z Abridged. So we're gonna move on to Frieza, who of course is a top tier villain. Villains in Dragon Ball are, up until a certain point, I love them all. And we'll get into that later, but Frieza is probably my favorite villain in the series. Or at the very least, Frieza comes... Like, the only person that comes painfully close to Frieza is Perfect Cell. I really, really like Perfect Cell. But Frieza does more than Cell does. At least Perfect Cell. Because Perfect Cell ends up just kind of standing around the arena, waiting for the Cell games to start, which I feel like is a wasted opportunity. But Frieza is just as cruel as they come. And the fact that Frieza has so much staying power, not only in the franchise, but in the fan base, it says a lot. The designs of Frieza's forms, except for, I think it's third form. That has the alien HR Geiger look. That was the only form I didn't really care for. But you know, second form and final form Frieza. Hell, I even enjoy the design of Mech Frieza. And Golden Frieza's not bad either. I like that Frieza got to a point in his, you know, arc, if you want to call it that, that he's like, oh, maybe I should train, and if I train, maybe I'll actually be able to beat this Goku fella. And that was an interesting realization for them to give a character like Frieza, who was just spoiled rotten by King Cold and had every had every thought in his head that he owned the universe. The fact that he was the biggest threat in the universe at the time, it really showed. The writing was really on point during the Frieza Saga, especially the tail end of it, when Frieza starts actually engaging with the main crew and starts, you know, bulldozing people. You get that really heartfelt moment with Vegeta before Frieza kills him. You get the iconic scene where Frieza kills Krillin, which leads to Super Saiyan Goku. Frieza does the job of villain perfectly. I will never try to take that away from Frieza. So Frieza gets to sit in the S tier, which takes us to the Android Saga. Frieza is an S tier shonen villain in general. Agreed. Kid Frieza was a baller in the Broly movie. Yeah, watching Frieza in the new Broly movie just kind of flex on people. I read that in Goku's voice just now, Josh. There may not be a Super Saiyan without Frieza. Agreed. So I remember hearing somewhere that the panel of Goku's Super Saiyan transformation in the manga was actually a mistake. I think what I heard, like, someone had forgotten to color in Goku's hair, and that's what led to the original design. I don't remember where I heard that. I could be misquoting or misinterpreting something, but that's what I remember hearing. I'm like, oh, you know, so it's just kind of a clerical error. Look, Broly, your father is dead. Yeah, I love Frieza. I love Frieza so much. I like Frieza, but I feel like Frieza does kind of overshadow Cell. Like, I would like to see Cell return in Super somehow, because Perfect Cell was fun. But moving on to the Android Saga, we've got... who should we start with? Where's my boy at? Let's start with Trunks. Future Trunks, S tier. I'm not even going to pull my punches on this one. I'm not even going to excuse it. Trunks is my favorite character. Future Trunks specifically is S tier for me. I've always loved Trunks. And that's why I was so furious when they did my boy so dirty in Super. One, I hate that they changed his design for Super. I hate that his hair went from like that cool lavender to like that off blue, and they changed his iconic Capsule Corp jacket to that weird just jean jacket. It's just a jean jacket. And they gave him a scarf, like a handkerchief, or a, what the heck is the word for it? An ascot. And I'm like, what are you guys doing to my boy? The History of Trunks movie is probably the most depressing piece of media tied to the Dragon Ball franchise. It's because like when you think about Trunks as a character, it's kind of horrifying to think that he didn't even have a chance to grow up like a normal person. Like, he was born, and then 6 months after that, people started dying, and then the androids just wrecked the world. So he grew up in the equivalent of the post-apocalypse, and then his life just gets worse, you know, because he goes back in time to try to stop the androids, but that doesn't fix his timeline. So he doesn't really get to enjoy the fruits of his labor until he goes back to his timeline and kills the cell that tries to take, you know, his time machine. But then his whole future gets ravaged again by Goku Black. And it's like, oh my god, dude, just give my boy a break. Let him just have a happy life, you know? But having him like show up in Super and having to see the future that he doesn't get to enjoy. Like, it was kind of heartbreaking at first. Goku Black, we'll get to Goku Black. I know that Trunks was pulled into the main timeline, but his life leading up to that point was just, holy hell, dude. Trunks had it really rough. So there's that. Trunks is S tier. Burning Attack was cool. I like that he has a sword, because at that point in my life, I was obsessed with characters with swords. He has one of the coolest designs. So Trunks gets to sit firmly in future Trunks. I have to specify, future Trunks gets to sit firmly in S tier. I feel even worse for Gohan in that timeline too. Witnesses everyone die again permanently after watching them die to the Saiyans and Frieza. Yeah, like, in a way Gohan doesn't have it. He does have it worse because he remembers the time when, you know, he was happy, but Trunks just never grew up in that. And I think that's what makes him coming back in time to try to save at least one timeline so valiant, because he just doesn't want another timeline to go through what he went through. So yeah, Trunks and future Gohan, they're solid characters. Like, I can't count solid like future Gohan just because he's technically a separate character from our Gohan. So we'll just say that he's a good character too. Moving on to the androids. We'll put 19. We'll put 19 at the bottom of C tier. You know, we'll put him above. We'll put him between Nappa and Dodoria. 19. I don't know what to say about 19. I feel like 19. One, I hate 19's design. I think 19's design is awful. I don't know what Toriyama was thinking, but shame on him. Yeah, the English dub voice of 19 was so bad, wasn't it? Oh my god. So bad. I think 19's design is really bad. The only thing I like about 19 is the fact that he catches Goku off guard with the energy draining, but Goku is only having a hard time because of the heart disease, like the heart virus. So like, even what made 19 semi-okay was exacerbated, or like it was propped up because Goku was already in the process of dying. You know, so I feel like I'm gonna bump him down to D tier. Maybe he's better than Goldo, but he's definitely not as fun or interesting as Birder and Jace. He doesn't have a personality. He's basically like Windows 95. Like, Team 4-Star was spot on with how they made him like an old, barely functional computer. So there's that. Yeah, 19 running from the Big Bang was pretty fun. It is Terminator like, isn't it? And that's not a bad thing, because I really like Terminator 1 and 2. Everything after Terminator 2 is pretty awful though. It's also harder to make a case for 19 when going against the other androids. Hell yes, I agree 100%, Miles. Especially the bit with the time traveling Trunks to fight the robots, etc., etc. Yeah, you know what? You're right. The Android Saga is basically Terminator. I never looked at it like that, but now I'll never unsee it. So let's move on to Jiro. Jiro is... So I don't have the same history with Jiro that everyone else does, because I don't remember much about OG Dragon Ball. So I'm gonna defer to you guys where you would put Jiro, because I know Jiro has like a long and storied history in the franchise. So what do you guys think about Dr. Jiro? Low B. Interesting, Zoran. Does anyone contest that? A tier for Jiro, geez. You got 2 for B, though the second B is a little shaky. I mean, he does have the lore going for him. Jiro was much more menacing in DBZ. He gets low B for making all the for making all the androids. That's fair. No opinion, don't remember much of Dragon Ball. That's fair. That's fair too. Well, it seems like B tier is the leading category. I'm not sure where I'd rank him. I feel like he's more interesting than both of them. But I just, like I said, I haven't seen Dragon Ball proper in like 15 years. Maybe it's probably been more than that. Because I remember being in middle school when Dragon Ball was airing on Toonami. So there's that. Let's move on to the fun androids. 16 is hard for me to rank because I don't think 16 is all that interesting, but he does get interesting character development. Even though it was for filler for the show, we just skipped the Garlic Jr. Yeah, because I don't care about Garlic Jr. Yeah, the Garlic Jr. is one of those characters where I was just like, if I talked about Garlic Jr., then I'd have to talk about the Dead Zone movie. And if I talked about the Dead Zone movie, then I'd have to talk about the other movies. Like, that's why I made an exception for Janemba. Because I just really like Janemba. And Cooler. I forgot Cooler's on here. So, you'll have to excuse those 2 exceptions to the rule. But I just didn't want to talk about most of the movies. I didn't want to rewatch the movies. Maybe that's something I'll do, is like rewatch the movies and then make a video where I like rank them from like my least favorite to favorite or whatever. Is Chi-Chi on this list? No, I didn't put Chi-Chi or Bulma on this list. Or the chick that's with Future Trunks. I didn't put any of them. Do a DBZ movie tier list? I would have to actually go and rewatch all those movies. Yeah, so Chi-Chi and Bulma they're missing from the list exactly for that reason, Zoran, is because I know that they have so much more history in Dragon Ball, and any character that had most of their storytelling done in Dragon Ball, I just kind of omitted because I don't remember enough about Dragon Ball to give them a proper, like a fair and valid, rating. Like, Jiro was on here because I completely forgot Jiro was in Dragon Ball until I was sitting here talking to you guys. So only waifu here is Android 18. I mean, and 18's best girl anyway. So I feel Chi-Chi and Bulma are missing from the list, but they were way better characters in Dragon Ball rather than Z. People who weren't superheroes were more relevant back then. Yeah, wasn't there a character named like Launch too? Ox King should be on the list though. He's as good as... I didn't feel like putting Ox King on here. That'd be like putting King Yam on the list. Like, it just, at a certain point, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so my thing about Videl is I like Videl's initial design, where she had like the long hair, and then they Yamcha her, where they give her a haircut so she looks like everybody else. Okay, so I'm not like making up Launch. Okay, I knew I remembered like a blonde-haired, bad-tempered girl that like went back and forth between personalities or something. No Ox King, no Gohan. Oh my goodness, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. We're moving on. 16. 16's hard for me to rank because I didn't really care about him as a character. but he does get interesting growth, and that is something that I can't really take away from him. That's what it was. Whenever she sneezed, she went to the other personality. Yeah, I do remember that. I distinctly remember that. 16 had a huge impact on, he did, which is that's what I'm saying. Like, it's hard for me to figure out where to put 16 because of the fact that 16 does have an impact on the story and does get his own character development. So that's what makes it tough for me to really buckle down and drop him somewhere. I'm willing to put him like high C tier or low B tier, because his impact on Gohan is just that important. Sixteen's moment with the birds separates him from 17 and 18. 16 also had one of the more heartbreaking deaths in the series. True. I'm thinking of a lot of characters missing from the list, but then I realized the only reason I remember them is because of Abridged. That's fair, Zoran. Yeah, see, before the Cell games, 16 really isn't much of a character. I'm gonna put him in high C tier. I feel like that's probably fair. You think he's above Raccoon? You know, he probably is above Raccoon. But at least Raccoon did stuff. Like, Raccoon actually did stuff. He actually beat up a whole bunch of people. 16 stands around for a long time. Yeah, 16 died. That was doing stuff. Oh. Yeah. I mean, out of everyone on C tier, he does have the best death. So I'm just going to leave him in upper C tier then, because I don't think he quite ascends to B tier. When Goku kicked Raccoon in the face, it put him in B tier. Okay. All these colors make a circle. Did you mean to say squares? Or am I missing a joke? Even so, spoke truth that he was trash. Still love him. No worries, Josh. No worries. So let's move on to 17. I think 17 is an upper A tier character. I like how cruel 17 starts off, and then how likable and wholesome he becomes in Super. And I like that his flip to, you know, being a protector isn't just like, oh yeah, he's just going to decide to be good. Like, it took him like pretty much dying for him to be like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't be like this. And then in Super, he becomes like a very likable character that pulls his weight, like especially in the Tournament of Power. Like, he puts in way more work than 18 in the Tournament of Power. Not that 18 doesn't do anything, because 18's a great character too. You know, I'm willing to put 18 up here too, since we're talking about both of them, because they both have fun personalities. They both have great designs. I really like both of their designs. I like 18's design more in Z than Super. I feel like Super got lazy with 18's design. They just kind of put her in like a pink tracksuit, like she models for Adidas or something. But they still gave 17 a whole outfit. I'm glad that Super came out, so we can't forget about GT. So we can't forget about GT 17. Yeah, Super 17 wasn't the best. We don't like to talk about 17, no Super 17 or GT. Yeah, I'm willing to put both of them in A tier, because They're both fun characters. They both have great designs. They both have a lot of growth, and they both have a direct impact on future Trunks. Like, even though that's a different set of androids from a different timeline, they're still the reason Trunks goes to the past. So, like, we can't really take that away from them either, because if they hadn't done that, like, if Trunks hadn't come to the past, they would have just repeated his timeline. They would have just made a brand new version of Trunks. So, yeah, they get to sit firmly in A tier. I do think... I don't know which one I would rank higher than the other, because they're both equally interesting. I think 17 has more to do. 17 has more to do in Super than 18 does. So... there's that. Let's find some more music. This works. That's a commercial. Okay. Where's the fat little samurai? Yajirobe. I left off a lot of minor characters. I left off Oolong, left off Yajirobe. I almost left out Chaozu, honestly. He almost kills an S tier character. Cell is S tier because I enjoy his different forms. I do think Cell is an S tier character. I don't think he's... I wouldn't put him above Frieza, and I like Future Trunks more. But I do think Cell becomes an S tier character just overall. I wasn't the biggest fan of Imperfect Cell, but I did like Base Cell. I thought Base Cell was properly menacing. The tone shift in the show when Cell shows up and starts eating people, well, more specifically drinking people, that was very ominous. That was something we hadn't quite seen in the Dragon Ball Z, because I can't really speak on Dragon Ball proper. Do you prefer Goku versus Frieza or Gohan versus Cell? Ooh, that's a really hard choice. I think I prefer Goku versus Frieza. Just because the fight is more dynamic. It's a way longer fight for sure, but it goes through different phases, and I think that keeps it fresh and more interesting. We all need to stay hydrated. No need to judge Imperfect Cell for his drink methods. I'm not judging him. So when I refer to Cell, I just call base, like first form cells, just Cell. Second form Cell, I call Imperfect Cell, and then of course there's Perfect Cell. I wasn't the biggest fan of Imperfect Cell's design, like face-wise. And this is just kind of a problem I have with the anime industry in general. Is I hate when characters are given like large, like bulbous lips. And I know Cell is, of course, a green character, but it's most prevalent in like black characters. And seeing it in like Cell, especially like look at Mr. Popo, and I'm sure they did. Actually, I don't want to justify Mr. Popo's lips, because that's like the epitome of blackface. But it's something that I really don't like seeing. Like, there's no reason to give a character bulbous lips, and it always seems to happen to characters of color. And that kind of, well, I can't even say characters of color because Goku's Asian. But well, I guess Goku's not Asian. He's Saiyan. He's not even from this planet. Chi-Chi's Asian. But it's just a design choice I've never liked. Cell could have achieved Perfect Cell without absorbing androids if he grinded the low-level human mobs for XP rather than doing the Z Fighter. Oh my... That's a top-tier comment, Zoran. That's a top-tier comment. Mystery Schooler says he's like a bug scorpion or something. There's no justification for Mr. Popo, and I agree with the lips. Yeah, it's something that's always bothered me because it feels very distinctly targeted. It's something like we don't tolerate it here in the West, so I'm not going to give it a pass in anime, you know? So that's probably my only really gripe with Imperfect Cell's design, is like his obnoxiously large lips. It's because anime is influenced by racist Disney cartoons. Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen Song of the South, the Disney movie. Holy shit. It's like, oof, that's an experience. I might do a video on that movie. I always assumed he was a djinn or something. I haven't seen anyone use the word djinn in a hot minute. But let's move on. Cell's S tier, gets good character development. He doesn't do as much during the Cell games as like Frieza did in the last half of his arc, but he's still a great character that I would love to see come back in some form or fashion, because frankly in Super I'm kind of tired of Frieza. Alright, so we're moving on to the Buu Saga now. So Babidi's D tier. I only put Babidi on this list because Babidi has a big impact on the Buu Saga. Like, the Buu Saga doesn't move forward without Babidi. But he's boring. Like, how am I supposed to be intimidated by this poodle-sized snail man? We're just gonna leave him D tier and move on. I feel like Deborah is probably like middle of the pack C tier, you know? Random fact, Buu Saga was where I first started to watch DBZ back in middle school. Oh, nice. Or not nice, depending on how you feel about the Buu Saga. You can take whichever answer you want there. Deborah, I feel like, is kind of middle of the pack. I think where Deborah falls short for me is the fact that he's like the king of demons, right? But we don't really get to see him doing like all that demonic stuff. Like, I don't really care about Deborah. Yeah, like if Deborah was in Babidi's place, I would have liked Deborah more. Deborah felt way more threatening and imposing than Babidi ever could. So Deborah was spitting on people, he should be B tier. Hey man, I'm not gonna king shame, but Deborah can keep his spit to himself. Deborah could have led to them talking about hell or the demon world or something. Yeah, Deborah, that's where I feel like he really falls short. There's so much potential for a character like Deborah, and that he just kind of falls short. He does have a good fight with Gohan, if I remember that correctly. But aside from that, Deborah doesn't really do much. You know? I like his design, and that's kind of what I mean. His sleeves are kind of puffy at the top, and that's a little dumb, but otherwise I do like Deborah's design. He's probably, not even probably, he's the most interesting of all of Babidi's little cretins, like Yakumo, I think his name was, and the other ones. Lord knows I don't remember their names, which is why they're not on here. So he didn't even seem like a king. How'd he get dog walked by? Yeah, you're right. Oh my, I don't understand how he was like leashed this whole time. Whatever. Poor Deborah. He gets to sit in the middle C-Pack because I do find him more interesting than... I probably find him more interesting than Zarbon too. He's more interesting than the others for sure, but he doesn't quite set the pace the way Raditz does, and he doesn't quite have a massive story moment the way 16 does. So he gets to swap places with Zarbon endlessly. So moving on, we shall go to Supreme Kai. I think Supreme Kai is a D tier character. I'm willing to put him in upper D tier, but I feel like Supreme Kai had a great introduction where he just comes off as super menacing, and you're like, oh, who's this dude? He's short and purple, and he's got a baller ass mohawk, and then he ends up being a completely useless character. Completely useless. He gets even less useful during the point where he becomes Kibito Kai, when him and Kibito use the Patar earrings. but he's an awful character. He does nothing. He adds nothing. He sits around and complains, even though his introduction set him up to be super powerful. Because like I remember that tournament, the Tenkaichi. Is it the Budokai? I don't remember what the tournament's called. It's been so long since I watched Dragon Ball. But he shows up and he's supposed to fight Piccolo, and Piccolo's like, "Oh, I can't fight this guy. This guy is yada yada yada," and like Piccolo forfeits, and I'm like, "Oh, this guy's probably got some skills. He's got some moves. This guy's probably good on the dance floor." And nothing happens. He shows up, he looks menacing for a little bit, and he turns out to be a total wuss. Okay, he exists. I really like his design, and that's what makes me so mad. Boo did wreck him. I do remember that. They trick you into weight training, and that's the entirety. Yeah. God, what a wasted character. What a wasted character. He did save Gohan. He did, but so much potential for like a cool design completely squandered. All right, next up in the Boo Saga. I feel like it's probably time for us to cover the other protagonists. So let's start with Videl. I was going to argue that his design was awesome, but you're right. He does jack and just sits around on the... Yeah, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Wolf. Videl. Let's talk about Videl for a little bit. I liked Videl in the beginning because like I said earlier, I liked her design. I liked that she had like the long hair that was pulled into little pigtails. You know, she was abrasive and aggressive. She wasn't taking any shit from Gohan. And then either Toriyama or the animators decided that we need to change her design because we hate animating all of this hair. So they cut her hair in the same way that they cut Yamcha's long hair, and now she just looks like a female Yamcha. And she's more interesting than Yamcha, like everyone is, except Chaozu. But she doesn't even really get to do much. She doesn't really get to shine at all. She has the fight in the tournament where she gets mercilessly bodied to the point where Gohan wants to step in. But aside from that, she's kind of a irrelevant character, if I do say so myself. Her personality in the beginning was very grating, but I did like that it mellowed out. But she's not given nearly enough to do to justify her being anywhere close to like a top character. So I'm gonna put her in like, she does more than the Supreme Kai, so I'm gonna put her in upper D tier. But she's mostly just there for Gohan to get mad. You're absolutely right. I feel like Videl is an example of the fact that Toriyama cannot write female characters. Yeah. She has a lot of potential, but then she just gets benched. Yeah, that's a problem I have with a lot of characters. They just get benched so that Goku and Vegeta can shine. Like, look what happened to Gohan. Speaking of Gohan, let's go ahead and drop him in here. I want to put Gohan in the A tier. I'm going to put him in low A tier. I'm torn between low A tier and high B tier. Because at a certain point, Gohan stops mattering. It's really sad. And it makes me... I'm going to put him in high B tier while I'm talking. So, Gohan is a tough one. Because Gohan was a great character. I liked him when he was a kid, all the way up through the Cell Saga. And when the Cell Saga ended, it's like, wow, they left Gohan with so much potential. They left Gohan in a position where he can be the show's new Goku. He can be the one to single-handedly protect Earth in his father's absence, like him and Vegeta and the other Z fighters. And then he just stops training. He does what he needs to do to still remain somewhat relevant, but then I guess Toriyama wanted to take him in a different direction with the whole, after the Cell Saga, he buckled down and decided to just be a good student. And I'm like, okay, but that's not what made Gohan interesting. What made Gohan interesting was him trying to balance those things, kind of like Spider-Man, where Peter Parker wants to have his personal life, but also can't neglect his responsibilities, I hated the Great Saiyan Man. Let me go ahead and say that flat out. Sorry, Zoran. I think the Great Saiyan Man was one of the dumbest things Toriyama did with Gohan. Absolute dumbest. The dog is going crazy right now. Oh, surprising. I just automatically assigned that Gohan was going to be S tier. He was never one of my favorites, though I started with Boo. Yeah, if you started with Boo, that's probably why he was never one of your favorites. Because Gohan has, alongside Vegeta, Gohan has one of the longest running story arcs. And then after the Cell games, his story arc just abruptly ends. Like there's just nothing left. And then in the Boo Saga, Gohan had potential in the Boo Saga, but then he just gets bodied repeatedly. He doesn't really get much to do. It comes back down to Goku and Vegeta saving the day. Even though Goku's dead, which Goku dying was the whole reason why Gohan should have been able to step up. But nope, Goku still had to be the front man from the other world. And then don't even get me started on Gohan and Super. What a joke he is. Like when he shows up in Resurrection F and he's like scrawny and wearing a green Adidas tracksuit. It's like, what is happening? Why is Gohan having trouble with these people? Like, this shouldn't be a thing. Like, Gohan should be one of the strongest people on the planet right now. And he's getting beaten up. Okay, cool. I'm fine with that. Let me just go scream into the void. He gets a little bit to do in, like, the Universe 7 tournament and then the Tournament of Power. But he never quite reaches the heights he was at the end of the Cell games. It's like Toriyama stopped knowing what to do with this character that he set up for greatness. And that makes me so sad, because I loved Gohan. So, as much as I hate that Team 4-Star stopped making Dragon Ball Z Abridged, I think that they did a good job with ending right with the Cell Saga so that we could see Gohan doing what Gohan needed to do. And then, of course, they make the joke about him peaking, and they were right. Gohan peaked at the end of the Cell games. Gohan, you mean Piccolo's son? Yeah. I don't see Oob. It's the second one, UUB. I didn't put Oob on here because I don't remember much about Oob aside from the fact that I like his character design. And I know Oob shows up relatively briefly in Z, so I didn't feel like putting Oob on here. Gohan would have brought the audience closer to DBZ, but he chose not to by dialoguing their emotions. The kid Goku neglects his family to train or whatever at the end. Yeah, that's Oob. Gohan fans suffer indeed. That's why I am glad that Goku. Wow, I tried to combine Goku and Gohan just now. Gohan is getting some time to shine in the new movie. Although I hate the art style, and that is the hill I am going to die on. But let's see how they bring Gohan back into relevance, especially since Super is, going to continue sometime in the future. Hopefully they give Gohan another good arc. Who else do we need to talk about? Goten! I hate Goten. I hate Goten so much. While I'm at it, I also hate Kid Trunks. While I'm at it, I also hate Gotenks. I don't know why Toriyama feels the need to always have like a Goku looking child character in the series. It doesn't add anything. I'm sorry, schooler. All three of them get to sit in D tier. I hate Gotenks. I hate Gotenks so much. I think Gotenks is the most worthless fusion in the entire series. Goten and Kid Trunks are comic relief, but no personality otherwise. But for comic relief, you have to be funny, you know? Like, they have to be funny characters, and they're just not. They don't add anything to the series. Yeah, Gotenks just gets, like, repeatedly spanked. Like, it's awful. The only cool thing they did was when what did they do? Like, they screeched their way out of the hyperbolic time chamber after the door was destroyed from the outside. That was kind of rad. But then they just are given Super Saiyan 3. Their little ghost attack is also gimmicky. Like, it fits the child personas of them. But I think Gotenks is wasted potential. Because the last thing that I want, the last thing anyone should want, is two annoying comic relief characters fusing into one even more annoying comic relief character. Because, like, you got to remember, with the fusion dance and of course the Batara earrings, their personalities are enhanced. And you have two dominant, well, I guess Trunks is the dominant personality there, but you have two personalities that are both jokesters. So all they're doing is throwing out jokes and quips and doing stupid stuff. And I hate the idea, considering how short episodes of Dragon Ball Z felt. I hated that so much time was wasted during fights of them just goofing off. And then right when they get serious, they unfuse. And it's like, oh, okay, so you were just here exclusively to waste my time. So there. Goten was a waste, sadly. Well, new subscriber. Let me turn off this freaking bar, because that's not accurate right now. Goten was a waste, sadly, especially after being the youngest Super Saiyan. Goten makes sense. There's nothing in him besides being a sidekick to Trunks. Yeah. I liked Gotenks' design, but Gotenks did get really annoying. Yeah, that's another thing. I really liked Gotenks' design, but I was only partial to his design because I really, really like the design of Gogeta, and he just looks like a miniature Gogeta. So I was really pulling for him when he first showed up, because, like, okay, maybe Gotenks will be more serious and they're going to get down to business, and it just became more wasted time. So all three of them can sit in D tier. Not to mention, in Super, Goten and Trunks get benched. Like, they don't really do anything aside from, like, that small filler arc that I skip every single time I watch Super. Like, what do they bring to the table aside from annoying the life out of people? All right, who else do we need to talk about in the Boo Saga aside from the Boos? Let's talk about Mr. Satan. I'm willing to put Mr. Satan in C tier just because I think he's funny. I love the idea of a strongman that is afraid to go up against people stronger than him because he doesn't want people to know he's a sham. He's basically the equivalent of, oh god, what was that guy's name? The guy that Bloodsport was based off of. Basically, it was a guy that claimed that he did all these crazy martial arts things, and then it came out that, like, none of it was true. Because, like, the movie Bloodsport was based on him. But No, the guy that Jean-Claude Van Damme played. It was like Duke something, I think. Wasn't Bolo the antagonist in that movie? It's been a few years since I've seen Bloodsport, so I don't remember the names of anyone except for Jean-Claude Van Damme. Anyway, I feel like a frontman that can't really legitimately keep his title is kind of funny. Like when he fought 18 and she agreed to take the fall in exchange for payment so that he could, like, you know, keep his reputation sterling. I thought it was pretty funny. His jokes don't get old in the sense that his shtick doesn't wear on you the way Goten and Trunks do, because he doesn't show up for enough time to really become annoying. And then in Super, he's actually a pretty wholesome person. Like, he's made friends with Boo. He just wants Fidel and, you know, her and Gohan's future baby to be okay. Like, he's just a dad. So he gets some interesting development too. He doesn't get to do much because he's just a normal person, unlike everyone else on this list. Hell, unlike his daughter. So he gets to sit he gets to sit right there. And in the middle of C tier. Alright, I think it's time now to talk about the Boo forms. I forgot King Cold. So because I forgot him, we're gonna toss him right down here. I feel like that's pretty indicative of King Cold. I forgot to talk about PyCon, but I'll come back to PyCon. So Fat Boo. I'm willing to put Fat Boo in B tier. You think he's the most interesting side character? I do agree, but I don't think that's enough to elevate him to B tier. I think that's probably enough to push him above Raditz into upper C tier, but I don't think it's enough to put him in, like, even lower B tier. I feel like Fat Boo is an interesting character because of the idea that he's not inherently evil. He's mostly just like a product of like a point and shoot. It's like, depending on who's at the reins, he's good or bad, of course, until he gets separated from his evil form. But he becomes a pretty fun character. He doesn't get too old too quickly. I do feel like he's kind of wasted in Super, especially when they set him up like he's going to show up in the Tournament of Power and then he just sleeps. That annoyed me. That really annoyed me. But they had to make room for Frieza instead of leaving out someone like, you know, Krillin. Fat Boo was so different from other villains. It was a nice direction. I agree. I don't think Fat Boo was what anyone was expecting when Boo first showed up. Because you're told how terrible this creature is and how it'll destroy the universe and yada yada yada, and how it used to do all these awful things. And then Fat Boo shows up and you're like, what, that's what you're talking about? And he starts turning people into literal food, and that's kind of savage. The humor is there. The intimidation factor comes and goes depending on the scene, but I thought Fat Boo was fun. This gets confusing because it's not a power scaling, so there's a lot of room for interpretation. What are you talking about, Schooler? He's just Kirby. You're right. He is literally just Kirby. Although I like Kirby as a character more. So while I'm waiting for that response, let's move on to Evil Boo. I honestly don't care about Evil Boo. Oh, at least, yeah. So the tier lists, like I said in the Hunter x Hunter video, and even in the Yu Yu Hakusho one, these tier lists are never based on character power. Not ever. These are always going to be about how much I like a character. If I do a character tier list that's based on power scaling, that's not any fun for me, because that's kind of objective. Like, based on, you know, author intent, characters are just dynamically more powerful than others. So tier lists like that aren't fun because you can't really put any thought into that for like the higher tier characters, you know? It's like the only time you can really do a tier list based on power scaling, you'd have to use like side characters and low tier characters, like D tier characters. You could never use like the S tier characters because, of course, as it is now, like Vegeta's at the front, of course. Frieza would probably still be where Frieza's at because of Gold Frieza form. So I guess that actually falls into place. But A tier would be wrong because the androids are stronger than Piccolo mechanically, like from a technical standpoint. You know, Jiro's not stronger than Fat Boo. So like there's never a reason to use power scaling for tier lists. People that do are just like, they're wasting their own time because there are going to be people that are like, oh, I'm going to argue because this is what the guidebook says. This is what the author says. And it's like, well, yeah, like there's no room for interpretation there. Whereas if I use like if it's a feels list, like you said, then I can just kind of chat with you guys about, you know, how I feel about certain characters. Oh, hey, what's up, Chloe? What is up? Yeah, Vegeta was the first one that we put in S tier. How was work? So let's move on to where did Evil Boo go? Oh, here. I don't think Evil Boo is all that interesting. I actually think Evil Boo is less interesting than Gotenks. Oh yeah, dude, I bet it was busy, especially for a Saturday. It's more fun and interesting when it's a feels list. Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. And it's easier to bounce off of you guys too. Especially if I don't really have a solid opinion on a character, it's easier to default to you guys and be like, well, what do you guys think? Versus if it's about power scaling, there's just an objective answer. This leaves more room for discussion for both of us. Evil Boo, I didn't really care for. I thought it was... He shows up and vanishes super fast. So we're just going to put him in D tier. And we're going to move on to... The only interesting factor to me with Evil Boo is that he's a personification of an internal struggle to me. Yeah, that does make... like, on paper, it's really good. But the execution for Evil Boo is just kind of boring. So we're gonna move on to Super Boo, and I think Super Boo is actually like a B tier antagonist. Maybe low A tier if I really double down. I think Super Boo was actually a lot of fun because of the intimidation factor and like just how he kept turning the tables on everybody. Like when he was fighting Gohan and Gohan had the upper hand and then he absorbs Gohan. Super Boo was conniving, strategic, but actually powerful enough to contend when it mattered. And if he couldn't contend, he found ways to do so. See you later, Chloe. Hope chilling goes well for you. Super Boo's one of those characters, like, if you look at him from a narrative perspective, you're just kind of like, eh, he's a thing that's happening. But over, like, threat level wise, Super Boo was just more interesting than Fat Boo and Evil Boo. Is Super Boo the one that insulted Goku by saying Goku doesn't even know what insurance is? I don't remember that. How many people did Super Boo have to absorb before he got Chin? we that was a good line. I do like that Super Boo's appearance changed as he absorbed people too. That was kind of cool. It reminds me of cosmetics in RPGs. So yeah, Super Boo gets to sit there at B tier, right next to the guy he absorbed. I actually feel Fat Boo's a lot more interesting than Super Boo, simply because Fat Boo stood out more to me. That's fair. For me, they're both like a B tier. I feel like Super Buu I'm ranking as like antagonistically, and Fat Buu I'm ranking kind of just like based on their character. I rank Super Buu higher because Super Buu did more with his screen time, because I'm also factoring the screen time that Buu gets in Super. And in Super, they've kind of relegated him to a side character, much to my and a lot of fans' disappointment. So that kind of brings his average score down a little bit. Because I'm looking at like the overall package for every character to the best of my ability. So let us move on to Kid Buu, whose head is cut off here because I couldn't find a good PNG image because I didn't want to take time to edit myself. Imperfect Cell is the best cell, the way you could hide in the shadows, like Boogeyman. So I call Imperfect Cell just base cell. I just call him Cell because it's easier to call him Cell and then second form Cell, Imperfect Cell. I mean, technically they're both Imperfect Cell, but it's easier to distinguish them from Perfect Cell like that. That's just semantics on my part, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah, how many Boos are there? There's Fat Buu, Evil Buu, Super Buu, and Kid Buu. So we're gonna put Kid Buu. I'm gonna actually put Kid Buu in like lower B tier. Not because Kid Buu isn't threatening, but because Kid Buu's just not all that interesting. Super Buu was way more interesting than Kid Buu because Super Buu had like an actual personality, whereas Kid Buu is like the feral core version of Buu that was going around ravaging galaxies. So he's more primal and less likely to have a whole scathing conversation, and that's what makes Super Buu more fun for me. Is the fact that he was willing to just sit there and mock the characters and talk to them before doing what he needed to do. Kid Buu was just there to blow stuff up and, you know, killed the planet and then fought Super Saiyan 3 Goku. I also think that it's kind of a weird design choice to go from Super Buu to Kid Buu. You know, like you go from an imposing figure that stood taller than Gohan to like a child-sized character, you know? That was kind of a weird design choice for me. So yeah, I don't really have much else to say about Kid Buu there. There's another Super Buu on here because I just could not figure out how to get rid of icons on here. Why is he called Kid Buu? Rolled with it when I was younger. But I think it's just because of his stature. I think it's just like... Honestly, I don't know either. I think it's just because of his size. But Kid Buu is not the most interesting. Vegito. I think Vegito is an S tier character. I feel like I don't really need to justify that. Vegito's a lot of fun. Very interesting dynamic between Vegito and Buu at that point. Because he was just manhandling Buu. It wasn't even close to a fair fight. And it was really cool to see what happens to Goku and Vegeta mentally when they're forced to use the same body, and how they just kind of line up. But it's also cool to see how when they fuse, which personality becomes the dominant personality. And of course, in this case, it was, you know, Vegeta. But Vegeta's one of those characters that I grew to like because I saw Fusion but Reborn before I saw the Buu Saga. So I like Gogeta more. But Vegito, I was like, yeah, I can get down with this guy. Design wise, not a fan of the blue on orange. And I'm not a fan of the gloves, but otherwise, Vegito's a great character. He gets down to business. He does toy around, which is definitely the Vegeta in him. Because like Vegito could have ended the Buu Saga right then and there. But he got too conceited, and that allowed an opening for the tables to get turned. And so let's see, who are we moving on to now? let's go back to PyCon. Let's double back to PyCon. I think PyCon is a B tier character. I would have liked to see more of PyCon, because it was interesting to see Goku have to fight somebody like right after dying. You could be right. It's been a while since I've seen the Buu Saga. So if you're right, I'm totally willing to concede that point to you. But that's something that's kind of present in Vegeto's character, even in Super. But I don't think it's to the character's detriment. I think that it works for what's going on. Vegeto's good. We're just gonna say Vegeto's a good character. PyCon, I liked PyCon's design until he's got what, 3 minutes of screen time total. Are you talking about Vegito? Because Vegito gets a bit more in Super. PyCon's design is cool until he takes off his like training gear. Because then he just looks like a green guy with a shirt tucked in. But when he has like his hat on, I guess you can call it a hat, and his vest and his skirt thingy, I don't know if PyCon's canon. I mean, PyCon appeared in Dragon Ball Z, but I don't know if he's actually canon or not. Like, your guess is as good as mine, Ridley. But I liked PyCon's... I wish I could remember the name of the attack, but he like put his fists together and did like the whole tornado thing. Or like how you like had Goku swallowed by a tornado and the air was so compressed that it was like cutting Goku's clothes and his legs and stuff. Oh cool, PyCon is canon. And what PyCon's introduction is probably what really settles him into B tier for me, because the Frieza and Cell are there in the afterlife and they're getting ready to pick a fight with Goku, I believe, and then PyCon comes out of nowhere and just one-shots both of them. And I'm like, oh, who is this dude? And immediately you're like, yeah, Goku's gonna have to fight this guy. And then when Goku does fight him, it's a great fight. It's a great fight. I really wish they would bring PyCon back. If even for like a mini arc. I want to see more of PyCon. I want to know more about PyCon's history. I would just like to see more PyCon. Alright, so after PyCon, we're gonna go to Cooler. I think Cooler is probably an A-tier villain. He's got more personality than Super Buu. He's got a great design. I really specifically like his design in Cooler's Revenge, or whatever it was called. Later, Cooler. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a good evening. I wasn't the biggest fan of Cooler's design in Return of Cooler, but I like that they gave Cooler a distinct personality and a motivation for wanting to track down and beat down Goku, instead of him just happening onto the planet and be like, oh, who's the strongest guy here? Is it that guy with the spiky black hair? Man, he's wearing a lot of orange. Guess I'm gonna go punch him in the face. Specifically, the design of Cooler that's on screen right now is probably my favorite. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of Cooler. I would have liked to see Cooler in Super. Like, I think Cooler is canon, because I know Frieza's referenced his family a few times in Z and Super. But I would like to see Cooler in some capacity, even if the characters have to like go to hell, where they see like Cell and Cooler and other characters they've destroyed and given a dirt nap. Let's move on to let's go through the rest of the Z characters first. So we'll put Krillin. I'm gonna put Krillin in like middle of C tier. Cooler isn't canon. That's sad. That makes me sad. Cooler's a great character. Oh well, a guy can dream. He should be. You're right. That's my mistake. I didn't I assumed because Frieza's mentioned his family before that Cooler was also canon. But since he's not, we'll just have to will it into existence at some point. It's weird that Cooler isn't canon, you know? Especially considering all the weird characters that are canon, like all the dumb characters in Super that are canon. If Cooler got an introduction like Broly, I'd be over the moon, because Broly's canonization was incredible. I almost came close to putting the non-canon version of Broly on here, just so I could like differentiate my thoughts between them. Krillin, I don't really have much to say about Krillin. He's more interesting than everyone in D tier, but that's not really a high bar to clear. He does more than everyone in D tier, which is also not a high bar to clear. He gets married to 18, which is kind of a flex. I like that they gave him more to do in Super, even if it wasn't the most. And regardless of how much he gets dunked on, he still remains like relevant to the party, even if he's not like relevant to the fight, if that makes any sense. Like he's always around in some capacity, and that makes him better than most of the people in D tier, just flat out. He's not my favorite character, but I also don't hate him. I just don't really care about him. We have Chaozu, who is probably the only person on this list that has technically never won a fight. I do remember Krillin in OG Dragon Ball was actually pretty fun. He was actually a pretty dope character back then, until Goku started actually, you know, doing everything. Chaozu has 0 wins, according to a website that I was on yesterday that shows like the track records of everyone's fighting, and that actually makes me laugh really hard. I think he's like 0-2 right now, and by right now I mean for the rest of eternity, because who cares about Chaozu? Chaozu is one of those characters that you just forget exists. You're like, oh yeah, you are also part of this series. Interesting. Okay. Later then, dweeb. And then you just move on. So that's all I have to say about Chaozu, because literally everyone in this list does more than Chaozu. I'm gonna avoid Yamcha as long as I can. I will dig that up, and then I will. Let me see if I can find that for you guys. Let's see. There it is. So it doesn't have every single character, but for some reason Chaozu made it on this list. And I will post that here in chat. If you go to a character's page, it'll give you kind of like the rundown of each character, but it also has like it has the win-loss record at the top of their profile. Chaozu is 0-3, excuse me. It's actually worse than we thought. So let's go to Master Roshi. Again, Master Roshi is one of those characters that I know has a long and storied history with the franchise. So I'm actually going to default to you guys. Where would you guys put Chaozu? Like, not Chaozu, Jesus. Master Roshi. For those of you that have a history with like OG Dragon Ball, where would you guys put him? Because I don't really care either way. I definitely don't think he's S tier. Or even A tier. Or maybe you guys do think he's A tier. They do get old quick. his pervy jokes do get old really quickly because they're not even done in a way that's kind of entertaining like Jiraiya. But even Jiraiya gets old very quickly. I mean, pervy characters in general get old quickly. I'm not a fan of like the lech type of like archetype. That's why I couldn't stand Zenitsu at first in Demon Slayer, because he was just kind of like a screaming lecherous character. But by the point in Demon Slayer that the show's at now, he's probably one of my favorites. I would argue D tier due to the jokes, but also factoring in how he was relevant to Dragon Ball, then maybe C tier. So Dragon Ball Roshi is A tier, DBZ Roshi is B tier. Pervy jokes aside, I'm sure he's responsible for forming Goku's philosophy about there always being someone stronger. Yeah, which has put Goku in some precarious positions, like the Tournament of Power. All because Goku wanted to fight stronger people, put his whole universe in danger. I'm willing to put Roshi. Roshi didn't. No, Roshi was mostly just a side character in Z. He only really becomes relevant again in Super during the Tournament of Power, which again, like, why? There were other better people they could have brought to the Tournament of Power. Why did they bring Roshi? Why did they go fetch Future Trunks? Future Trunks is way stronger than Roshi. I'm willing to put Roshi in B tier. I don't think that. I think if you average out what happens in Z and Super, measured against how relevant he was in Dragon Ball proper, I feel like upper B tier is probably okay. Maybe lower B tier, upper C tier. Because of Roshi's legacy, I'm just going to put him in lower B tier, because he's like an upper C tier character for me. I feel like this is kind of like a good compromise to respect his legacy as a character versus what he becomes later on, you know? That brings us to TN, or Ten Shinhan for those of you who like to be that person. I never really cared about TN, but again, he's another character that I know has a long history. So this one is getting thrown back to you guys. Where would you guys put TN? While you guys are deliberating on TN, we've got one for C tier, which is where I was leaning as well, honestly. TN, the poor man's Hiei. Oh, don't you disrespect Hiei like that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Hiei deserves better than that. Oh my. And I say that as someone that put Hiei in B tier. Oh man, speaking of tiers, so I actually got a comment the other day that someone was like, "Oh, people hating on Sasuke is cringe," and I'm like, "No, not Hiei. Sasuke is an awful character. Like, I understand its relevancy to Naruto as a whole, but Sasuke's not a very well-written character. You can be mad all you want." I wasn't disrespect, just saying Hiei is better than yeah, that's, I mean, that's I was just saying, like, putting Hiei and Tien in the same sentence is like, oof, of the disrespect. A lot of people are better than Tien. There are people in like the D tier of the Yu Yu Hakusho and Hunter x Hunter tier list that are better than Tien. I'm gonna put Tien in C tier for now. Until, because I've only seen one person. I've only seen Daz say that Tien should go somewhere. They do both have 3 eyes. You got me there. I think he'd be jealous of I think he'd be jealous of Hiei's hair, and Hiei would be jealous of his height. So it's a bit of a back and forth there. Seems like C tier is where it's gonna go. So now we have to do the thing we said we were gonna do. Oh, I changed the wrong thing. I'm such a dunce. Add a row below. And this is going to be the Yamcha oof tier. And that's where Yamcha goes. Yamcha is actually more interesting than Tien to me. Same, but it's fun to dunk on Yamcha. So he gets his own tier. Realistically, I know Yamcha has another long history. So I probably, me personally, I'd put Yamcha in like upper D tier. Not even upper D tier. I'd put him probably, like, if we were being subjective about it, I'd probably put him in like lower D tier, because at least Tien has that cool moment against Cell. Yamcha doesn't do anything. The most Yamcha does in Dragon Ball Z is get impaled by Jiro. That's the peak of Yamcha in Dragon Ball Z. I mean, there's the Cyberman, but he gets exploded. So Yamcha's just there to lose all the time. But again, I don't have the same extensive history with Yamcha that some of the OG fans do, because I know Yamcha was incredibly relevant in Dragon Ball. Because I remember watching a couple of episodes that my friend had on VHS. I was like Yamcha when he was fighting Goku with like the Wolfang fist, and he was trying to stab Goku with his sword and all that stuff. Like, oof. Yamcha used to be awesome, and then he wasn't. So just for you, Riku, Yamcha gets their own tier, and that can be whatever letter grade you want it to be. So we are going to move on to Bardock. Yamcha loses fights as well as this girl. Oh man. Oof. Oh, see, yeah, Yamcha. Oof. That's all you can really say there. Let's move on to Bardock. Another movie character. I don't... I'd probably put Bardock in upper B tier. Simply because of like his legacy as a character. You're right, like Bardock is the one character that I want more story of. He's such an interesting character. Bardock is... It was nice to see him in the Broly movie and see how, as a parent, he like kind of lamented the fact he had to send his son away, but he knew in his gut that something bad was going to happen. And I just want to see more. I just want to see Bardock before that. Like, I want to see the stuff leading up to Bardock's final moments. Not necessarily like the original Bardock movie, but more like a mini series where it's just Bardock's life. like him joining the ranks, him going up the ranks, him like getting his scars and stuff. There's not enough. There's not enough of Bardock in the series, and that's such a shame. Honestly, if Toriyama didn't feel like using the human characters anymore, he should at least give them a satisfying exit instead of overstaying their welcome. I agree. 100% agree. Bardock's whole story was the boy who cried wolf without all the lying. Yeah, you're not wrong. You are not wrong at all. It's also really fun to see a character that looks just like Goku but is much more gruff than Goku. See you later, Thunder. Thanks for stopping in. Hope you have a good evening. Yeah, the mischievous character is nice, and you have to try to fine line when you're fleshing out characters, because for some characters, the mystery is what makes them appealing. Once you start really fleshing out their character, a lot of the mystique is gone. And I had a character in my brain that was the prime example of this, but I don't remember it now. So we'll come back to it later. And I think that officially puts us into super territory, with the exception of this extra super boo, Headless Boo. I like the way Bardock is viewed by his team. Agreed. Thoughts on King Vegeta? Mostly irrelevant. I think I said everything I needed to say about King Vegeta. I guess I would like to see more of King Vegeta interacting with young Vegeta, because it's easy to assume that Vegeta gets most of his outlook on life from his father, being from, Saiyan royalty. So it would be interesting to see more of child Vegeta interacting with his father, because we don't really get to see much of that. We don't really get to see Vegeta, making his father proud, or interacting with him, or getting trained by his dad. We don't really get to see any of that. So I guess I would like to see more about King Vegeta, but only because I'd like to see more about Vegeta's past in general. Which is less interesting, King Vegeta or King Cold? King Cold. Any day of the week, King Cold is less interesting. I'd be more likely to tune into a King Vegeta series than a King Cold series. Because it's got to be interesting to be a ruler of an entire planet that's also named after you, and you have a son that's named after you, and a planet that's named after you. And think of all the politics that goes into running a planet like that. Can you imagine how many attempted coups there must have been among the Saiyan race? Like, that would have been cool. Or like the impact of being raised in an environment like that for Vegeta, Vegeta Jr. All of that adds up to a really cool concept on paper, but I don't know how well the execution would be, especially with how weird Super gets at times. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Super, but I was appreciative of more Dragon Ball. I don't know, was the color orange named first or the fruit orange? It's literally that same dilemma. Though I wouldn't I would be willing to bet that the planet was named something else, and then when Vegeta's family dynasty took over, maybe they like officially changed the name to reflect their status. That sounds like something Vegeta's family would do. So let's start with, oh wait, we forgot Janemba. I'm gonna put Janemba in like mid B tier because I like Janemba's design a lot. Fusion Reborn was a great movie, and it introduced us to Gogeta. I also like the way Janemba attacks. I like that Janemba was given a sword, but I also like that he has like that oh well, there you go. The fruit orange came first. I like that Janemba has that one attack that he kind of like draws a line in space and it shatters like glass. That's a cool idea for an attack, and it's kind of inspired some special attacks for like characters I've made during like D&D and stuff. So Janemba gets a solid B tier. That movie was also pretty solid for some of Vegeta's character development, even though that's not canon. It was still good to see. And I don't think we've seen a design quite as distinct as Janemba's since then. So who knows? Who knows how that's gonna never shake out, because we're never gonna see anything like that ever again. It seems like Toriyama is more likely to recycle the Frieza design than anything else. Alrighty, so we are finally, I believe, in Super Proper. That's all that's left. Let's start with Frost. Frost is a D tier character for me. This is Frost. The image was too large. Frost was just a watered down version of Frieza, but in the worst way imaginable. Because it wasn't even interesting. He was just like a palette swapped version of Frieza without any of the things that made Frieza engaging as a villain. And he's a cheater too, like with those stupid like venom needles. Like come on, that's a cheap way to win a fight. The moment he did that, I was like, oh, what a loser. Get this loser out of here. Have a good evening, Ridley. I hope you get to show up again soon. Thanks for coming out. I'm glad it was your first time you got to participate in chat. Yeah, Frost is definitely better than King Cold. Like, there's enough there to make him like a character, but I also just don't like him. I think his design is lazy. There's nothing really to it. But I think that also comes down to the animation techniques of Super, because there's not as much detail as there was in Dragon Ball Z. So if Frost was like a one-to-one comparison of Frieza, like all the way down to the detail, I probably would have liked Frost more, until of course he pulled that stupid, oh, I stabbed you with my hand needle, ha 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 ha, because that was dumb. Moving on to Beerus. Beerus is an S tier character to me. If not S tier, then very, very high A tier. Because we still haven't seen the extent of what Beerus can do. Turles is a much better evil Goku than Goku Black. And I'll die on that hill. Yeah. It's been a while since I've seen Tree of Might, which is why I didn't put Turles on here, but I do agree. To an extent, I agree. I do think Goku Black has some redeeming qualities, but we'll get there. Beerus is just a fun, entertaining character. I like that he gets what he wants, and he won't take no for an answer. He's impatient. He's stupid strong, but he's just, above all else, aside from him being like a powerhouse, he's just an engaging character. All the characters react to him. The audience reacts to him. He kind of steals the show when he's on the screen, even when he's being a dickhead. And I think that makes for an interesting dynamic, especially when he can tell that Goku is slowly but surely creeping up on him in power. Beerus, I like his design too. I'm a big fan of his cat-like design. I have a confession, I have never liked Goku Black too much. He's a neat character design aesthetic though. A lot of people don't like Goku Black. Like that, there's a lot of people that share that same sentiment, don't worry. Yeah, Beerus is fun, even when he's not fighting, and I think that's kind of what earns him an S tier, is that he doesn't have to be on screen throwing hands for him to be as entertaining as he is. Like, he kind of has no business being as entertaining as he is, but they give him a lot to do, even when he also still has nothing to do. Like, hell, just his fight with Goku on King Kai's planet was iconic. Goku is going all out, Super Saiyan 3, throwing hands, and Beerus is just tapping him. Put his hand on his shoulder, drop the boy. Sent Goku through the planet. Like, like, hey, can you not do this? This is the planet I live on. King Kai was not happy, but... Or like how he was kind of satisfied with that one planet, so he tapped the table and broke the whole planet in half, which realistically would just destroy the planet. Yeah, I really can't say anything better about Beerus. He's just a great character. Like, whoever came up with Beerus, I don't know if that's like Toriyama just came up with him or if he was bouncing ideas off of people in his office, but Beerus was a home run. In that same vein, I also think Whis is an S tier character. And I think a lot of the mystique around Whis is what makes him so interesting, because he's strong enough to put Beerus in his place when Beerus gets out of hand, but he's also still charismatic and charming and cares about the people around him. He's got a fun, flamboyant personality. The design kind of grew on me after a while. I didn't really like the design that much at first. I think the hair was kind of killing me, and the color palette's a little chaotic. It's a little busy, but Whis as a character is thoroughly entertaining. Watching him train Goku and Vegeta and explaining to them why they were different and why they can't do what one other does, I thought that was interesting insight coming from a character like Whis. And then, of course, as Goku started to tap into Ultra Instinct, and we start to realize that angels have Ultra Instinct, it's just part of them. Like, they just do it. And then to think that we still haven't seen the extent of the angel's power, so we don't really know where Whis' cap is. And I think that mystery is pretty intriguing. Whis is funny. He does funny properly, unlike Goten and Trunks. Let's go on to... we'll start from Gogeta and work our way backward. Gogeta, S tier character. Whis took me a while to get used to. I'm not a fan of his time travel powers, but he's cool. I always feel like time travel is kind of a cheap mechanic no matter how it's used. The only time time travel was used in a way that made sense was with Future Trunks, and that's because what he did in the past didn't affect his timeline, so he could act freely. Whis having time travel powers so that if something goes really wrong, he could just like rewind does feel cheap. It does feel like he always has that get out of jail free card now that he's played it. So I am not a fan of that either. I do agree with you, Daz. Gogeta has one of my favorite designs character-wise. I like that Gogeta does not screw around. The moment he's in play, he starts going to town. He's there to wreck shit. He's not there to make jokes. He's not there to toy with his opponent. He's there to put his opponent in the ground. And I love that about Gogeta. Even in Fusion Reborn, he didn't fuck around. In the Broly movie, the moment he was on the battlefield, he was putting Broly in his place. He was gonna kill Broly. And I think that's what differentiates him. Let me move these boys around, because I think that's the proper order. Gogeta is everything that you want a character to be when it comes to a serious battle. Because it's still Goku and Vegeta working together, but they're not letting Vegeta's ego ruin the fight. He just shows up, he stomps, and then he leaves. And I think that's awesome. I love the design of I like the vest he wears alongside the color palette of his pants and his shoes and his armbands. He adds a lot without adding too much. So I don't really know what else to say about Gogeta, because Gogeta, despite technically being canon now, doesn't have a lot of screen time. Gogeta's mostly biased on my part right now. Dispo, I think Dispo is like an upper C tier character. How's it going, Dominic? Welcome to the stream. I just finished showing my bias for Gogeta. SSJ4 Gogeta was playing with Omega Shenron GT, but GT's not canon, so I'm not going to count that. I know I'm being I know I'm playing semantics on that one, but I feel like Gogeta in GT was toying with Omega Shenron because they needed to pad out the runtime. GT has really bad pacing issues, so I'm sure they didn't want a character to just show up and body the antagonist they spent all that time setting up. So you can draw the line where you want to. I'm going to leave GT on the other side of the canon discussion, along with anything that happens in GT. Dispo is... Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Dominic. So I decided to... I don't know if you saw the community post, but I decided to make more than one Three Kings video. So I'm going to do the first video the way everyone wants, which is like just a video essay / analysis. And then I'm going to do the video I wanted to do. And there's been hints of it on my Discord if you're in there, but it's going to be an interesting video. Like, and there's a lot of surprises lined up for that specific video that would have been in the original video, but since I'm splitting them into the analysis and then the second video, they'll all be in the second video. But I'm glad you're looking forward to it. I'm glad that more people have been showing up and showing love for the content I already have. So yeah, welcome to the stream. Hope your evening's going well. Dispo's like another birder, both being known for their speed. Yeah, I think Dispo is more interesting than birder because Dispo gets a little bit more to do, but I also don't think Dispo is as interesting as, like, I'm willing to put Dispo above Raccoon because Dispo did get more to do than Raccoon. I also plan to do a video on the Poltergeist report, which was the Yu Yu Hakusho movie. The dub is atrocious, so I'm kind of debating watching the sub of the movie, but that's a conversation for another day. I don't have a lot to say about Dispo. Dispo's design is kind of boring, but then again, everyone from that universe's designs are boring. His power was decent enough. I like speed powers, but I don't know. Dispo he's more interesting than Raccoon. He gets more to do than everyone in C tier, even though 16 has better moments than him. Well, moments, like singular, I guess. I don't know. Dispo's hard to place because I just don't care. Caulifla. So I'm actually going to put all of the... What is it, Universe 7 or 6? I don't remember Universe. I'm going to put all of the alternate Saiyans in C tier. Because... Actually, I'm going to drop Kaba down to, like, upper D tier. Because Kaba specifically pisses me off. At least Caulifla and Kale had established rapport, so watching them bounce off of each other was kind of wholesome. Like, watching Caulifla constantly, like, trying to empower her friend and be like, hey, you know, believe in yourself, you're stronger than you think. Like, that was wholesome in its own way. You could tell they have a distinct and deep friendship. And there's something inherently cute about, like, shy characters like Kale. They're like, oh, you know, I'll just kind of default to what she thinks. And then she finds herself and she's like, yada, yada, yada. The only thing I didn't really like about Kale was when she goes Super Saiyan and she kind of goes into, like, the Berserk Super Saiyan state. So she was like a female Broly. I thought that was kind of like a... I thought that was kind of a dumb way to go. I don't know. It didn't feel earned to me. It felt kind of cheap. It didn't feel the way I'm sure Akira Toriyama wanted it to, where it's like, oh, it's a girl Broly. It's like, oh, she's just a girl Broly. Okay. It's kind of derivative, but I get where they're going. But Kaba, Yu Yu Hakusho is in my top 5 anime of all time, and what got me into anime, so anytime I see love for it, I will always show love for the content. I'm doing well. I'm prepping chicken fillet for dinner. Oh, that sounds nice. I haven't even decided what I'm going to have for dinner. I have options, but I'm not really hungry at the moment. Like, I pulled a drink out, like, because I get thirsty more than I get hungry. So, Kaba got on my nerves in the sense that I had high hopes for Kaba. I like the idea of these alternate Saiyans being like somewhat worse than the Saiyans we know. Like they're not as aggressive, they're not as strong. I don't really like Kaba's design. I know Kale and Caulifla have kind of basic designs, but their designs work for them. They kind of show off their personalities a bit. And I know Kaba's kind of shows off his personality, like him being kind of a more disciplined is too strong a word, more devoted to his training and stuff. But I hate the idea of this character that has so much clear potential being completely wasted. And what kind of brings down these Saiyans for me is how easily they acquire Super Saiyan. Like how it's explained to them and then they just do it. I know Kaba kind of gets to Super Saiyan through, you know, trial by combat with Vegeta, but that was more of a big moment for Vegeta, like Vegeta kind of taking the time to teach someone. Like I felt like that was more indicative of Vegeta than it was Homeboy. So I don't know, it's a weird thing for me. I don't really care about Kaba. I wanted to see him do more, but we just didn't get that, and that makes me really sad. Toppo I feel is like somewhere in the middle of B tier, I guess, because he has a distinct personality. Like he cares about Jiren, he keeps trying to connect with Jiren. He's a powerhouse. He's just kind of like, he is just kind of there for a while though. But I do like that he poses like a solid threat to Goku's team and how he becomes like a god of destruction. That was kind of cool. That wasn't what I saw coming at all. Like when the gods of destruction were talking about how in that universe there was someone that was kind of on par with the god of destruction strength wise, we all assumed it was Jiren. And then here comes Toppo with his god of destruction shenanigans. And I was like, oh, okay. And then despite being kind of cast aside by Jiren, he still has his back. And I think that kind of wholesome connection and the god of destruction stuff is enough to earn him like middle of the pack B tier. Similar to Goten and Trunks getting Super Saiyan 2 easy? Yes, very much so. Very much so. Kefla. I feel like Kefla is like kind of like bordering on upper B tier. Yeah, it was a cool surprise. Caught me off guard because I was definitely like, oh, okay, cool. They're talking about Jiren. Kefla, I think, added a lot of flavor to two characters that desperately needed something to do. I did think it was kind of like cheap that they were allowed to have the Patara earrings thrown into the ring for them. I didn't really care about that storytelling technique. I was like, they should have just had them all along instead of being like, oh, here, take this. But her fight with Goku and then Ultra Instinct Goku was rad. That fight was so cool. I like her attack. I don't remember what it's called, but like the spiraling colors looked super dope. I do think that they could have done more with Kefla's character design, because like if you look at Goku's design and then Vegeta's design and then Gogeta's design, they're distinctly different. Like Gogeta gets his entire own outfit, whereas Kefla just kind of inherits a different tone version of Kale's outfit, and I thought that was kind of dumb. So the one on here is Super Broly. I was going to add Z Broly like as his own distinct thing, since they're at this point two separate characters, but no, I'm just covering Super Broly. Yeah, I think Kefla deserved a better design. But other than that, I thought she was a fun character. I thought she did what she needed to do. She helped Goku bring out more of Ultra Instinct, which was always fun to see. Can't really go wrong with that. Next up we have Jiren. I think Jiren is a D tier character. Maybe like middle of the pack D tier. I'd put him with Supreme Kai. I think Jiren is super boring. He has a boring design. He has a boring everything. Characters that are designed to be oppressively strong have to be written correctly. They have to be written to be interesting. And Jiren being oppressively strong, but also having nothing else to do, makes him so boring. Makes him so boring. If Jiren was a shit talker, or if he boasted, or if he engaged with the battle more frequently, he'd probably be more liked by the fan base. But he just stands there with his arms crossed, and he just like, you can tell how interested or disinterested he is in the goings on of the tournament by how open or closed his eyes are. And I was like, oh, what's up? What's up? Oh man, I almost called you Deja. It's been a hot minute. How's it going, Aaron? I'm at my stepson's baseball game. I'd love to give my input in this. Oh, nice. How's the game going? It's part of the reason why I like him better in the manga. Is Jiren more interesting in the manga? Because if he is, I mean, I'll probably never pick up the manga. I still need to finish reading Berserk. But as far as he goes in the show, Jiren only gets moderately interesting when Ultra Instinct hits the table. And even then, it doesn't really get interesting until near the end of the fight, like the end of the tournament. Because for the most part, Jiren's just there to be the big, strong wall that Goku's universe has to get through. And then they try to throw in his backstory to make him appeal to the audience, but they do it way too late. For characters like this, you have to throw stuff like in way earlier. The later you wait, the harder it is for the audience to connect. And if an audience can't connect to your main antagonist, you fucked up. Yeah, Jiren was strong for strong's sake. That's literally all it was. It feels like they put more emphasis on Jiren's characterization in the manga, even before the tournament starts. I wish we'd gotten that in the anime. Manga Jiren and tournament power in general, I think, was better in the manga. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that's the case. Most manga have better characterization than anime, because anime has to fill out a certain runtime. But they did. If Jiren's a decent character in the manga, then they did him real dirty in the anime. So Jiren gets to sit there in D tier, because I don't know a single person that's watched Super that hasn't read the manga, of course, that likes Jiren. Like, I don't know anyone that does. Everyone's like, yeah, like Ultra Instinct was cool, but I don't care about Jiren. It's like, everyone else in D tier, in some way, is more interesting. Even Chaozu. Apparently the manga fixed a lot of what the anime wasted. That makes me sad. That makes me sad, because I'll probably never pick up the manga. Jiren didn't stand out compared to the other villains. Even lesser villains like Goldo have something that makes them stand out. Yes. And I think that's the barrier that they hit like head first, is that with Jiren being the antagonist, everyone was instantly going to measure him against other antagonists. And when you put him against the likes of, hell, even if you put him against the likes of Goku Black, he's not interesting. Jiren's fights were cool in the anime, but as a character, he's meh. Yeah, I even think meh is too much. I think meh is too good for him. Plus, he was more active in the Tournament of Power instead of standing and meditating. I wish we'd gotten that, but since we're not speculating on like what ifs and what if the manga, well, what if the anime had done what the manga did? We just got to judge them on the anime because that's all I do is I watch anime. It's more convenient for me to watch anime. I don't have time to read all the manga I want to read. Like I said, I'm still working on Berserk. Hit. I think Hit is upper B tier. He's a vastly... I would have preferred if Hit was the antagonist of the Tournament of Power. Stepson hit 3 Grand Slams, but my coworker and myself were talking about how the new movie villains has to be Cell. I wish the new movie's villain was Cell. I was talking about Cell earlier and how I really want him to come back because I'm kind of getting tired of Frieza, but Hit, like Pycon, is an interesting character and has a lot of potential, and I like that he's an assassin. Yeah, I would have liked if Hit had been the antagonist of the Tournament of Power because I feel like Hit's powers are really cool, but Goku and by proxy other characters overcome his power really quickly. I really do think that Hit kind of got shafted in the sense that his power shouldn't have been as easy to overcome as it was. Yet here we are with a bunch of characters that just kind of break free. I want to see Hit train and become stronger and use his ability in more interesting ways. Because him using it against Vegeta was fun. Him using it against Goku was cool until Goku started getting the better of him. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's just a thing now. I guess Hit's just suddenly going to become irrelevant. And then, of course, when he used it against Jiren, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. But then Jiren's like, nope, sorry, dude. The TOP in both versions have problems, though. Ironically, they suffer from opposite issues. The manga TOP was a bit rushed, and the anime's was bloated. Yeah, the Tournament of Power in the anime feels like it takes forever. That's why I don't watch it. Like, if I want to watch the Tournament of Power again, I watch specific fights. I don't watch the whole thing, because Lord knows I don't have that much time. Hit has a cool ability, but I wish it was explored more. Just read that, yeah. Seems like all the signs for it to be Cell in the movie, especially with the Z Fighters. The rumor is Cell Max. Interesting. Because I know that the superheroes in the movie are androids, right? I think I watched the most recent trailer. I'm still not sold on the art style, though. Still not sold on the art style. I probably won't watch it when it first comes out. I'll probably wait to see what people say about it first. Because I'm not as invested in Super enough to see the movie like I am with like Demon Slayer or Jujutsu Kaisen where I was in the theater. Or hell, even My Hero Academia. He would be a cool returning rival for Goku and Vegeta with a power-up, of course. I agree. I also always agree with the phrase no spoilers. It's hard to talk about stuff on the internet like that has a manga and an anime because I like to talk about the anime and then you have manga readers that'll come up to the conversation and just start talking about spoilers. And it's like, no, we're talking about the anime. Please calm down. Oh, the movie's in 2 months? Did you also see the confirmed new form of Gohan? I did not, actually. I watched the trailers and then just kind of tuned out. Because for me, unfortunately, I said it like 6,000 times during this stream. So I'm sure others are getting tired of hearing it, is when I saw what the art style was, like how they were going with like the CG 2.5 3D kind of thing, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna watch this. Oh, Akira confirmed it. Nice. Hopefully that means Gohan's gonna get his time to shine again, because we were talking about Gohan earlier and I'm just like, I want Gohan to be an A tier character, but oh yeah, dude, go ahead and send it my way. Yo, Rodimus, what's up? I was wondering when you were gonna show up, buddy. Yeah, it came out in Japan yesterday, but for some reason they're releasing it in August. Probably to dub it when they release it. Well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense, but it's weird that they didn't dub it at the same time that they were recording the Japanese voice cast. because a lot of anime movies these days, like the big ones, are kind of released simultaneously in theaters. So that is weird. It's very bizarre to me. So let's move on to Goku Black. Probably one of the most divisive characters on this tier list. I think Goku Black is like a middle of the pack C tier villain. Oh snap. Dang, that new Gohan form looks legit. I have mixed feelings about Goku Black because I think Goku Black has one of the strongest villain introductions in the series. I love his design. I like that they gave him darker colors, and because it's always fun to see Goku as a character design scowling, which is why I like Bardock so much. But Goku Black very quickly goes off the rails, and not in a fun way. It just kind of goes sideways. I did like Super Saiyan Rosé. I really like those colors, but when you compare the rest of the arc to his introduction, it's night and day, because then you get hung up on like the Zamasu stuff, and I mean that does explain how Goku Black came to be, but then you have like him in a different version of himself teaming up and all that jazz. Like that wasn't necessary. Like we didn't need that. We would have been just fine with the explanation of how Goku Black came to be, and then we could have just let Goku Black do his thing. But also, like, give Future Trunks a break, please. Future Trunks did not need another disaster in his timeline. It was already a wasteland. Like, geez, give my boy a break. But Goku Black, I really wanted to like him. Nothing much, man. Just got caught up lambing some Red Earth. Now I'm chilling at the moment. Glad to be here. How are you doing, buddy? I'm doing great. It's been a chill day for me. I haven't really done much. I've just kind of been resting, resetting. I didn't even run my D&D campaign yesterday because I just too much brain fog, man. I've just been kind of out of it. I feel like I haven't been getting enough sleep, so just kind of been taking today to chill. He didn't really need to come back in Super. It feels like Goku Black was trying too hard to look badass, while Bardock and Turles felt more natural. I kind of agree to an extent there. I do feel like the writers kind of went overboard trying to make Goku Black feel threatening instead of just letting him do threatening things. Because Goku Black at a certain point just does a lot of talking. And it's like, okay, we get it. We get it. You're a bad guy. Just do bad guy stuff. Like that's all we need to do. At least when Frieza was talking all Frieza shit, Frieza was very eloquent, which is what makes Frieza stand out. Frieza was eloquent but cruel. Goku Black just talks. He looks cool. He had a great intro, but then he just talks a bunch of shit. And it gets old. It gets old real fast. And then the way the arc concludes with like him fusing with Zamasu, and then like the infinite Zamasu, and Trunks getting like a spirit sword like a Jigen and cutting him in half. It was like, ugh, what is this nonsense? It devolved into like a fever dream. Also, yeah, I agree. It sucks that the Black Arc turned Trunks' world into a disposable battleground. Yeah. Simp for Goku Black and Goku Black only. Okay, Sonny. Also, welcome back. How did chilling go? Good to hear, man. Glad to hear you're doing well and that you're giving yourself some rest time. Yeah, dude, I still need it. Goku Black equal worst version of evil Goku. Yeah. The only time Goku Black really shines is in his intro and his transformation into Super Saiyan Rosé. Trunks is really happy when the world he fought so hard to protect when it gets erased. Yeah. I think he's just glad to be done with that timeline altogether. He's like, whatever, I want to go to the beach somewhere, please. Can I go somewhere where the sky's not always gray? or green. What's good? Ready to punch some zombies. Yeah, the stream will be over soon, at least for the tier list, and we can bonk some zombies. All right, so let's move on to Broly, specifically Dragon Ball Super Broly. So as much as I like him, I don't feel comfortable putting him anywhere above B tier right now because we haven't seen enough of him to be A tier or S tier. But I do really like him. I think that was an incredible movie. Incredible visuals, incredible voice acting. Everything about that movie was awesome. But we didn't get enough of him for me to be like, okay, yeah, he qualifies for A tier or S tier. Because at least we've seen Cooler twice, you know? I do like that we get enough backstory to care about Broly. So, like, he's not just some mindless destruction machine. He's actually, like, someone with, like, a personality who's just been led down the wrong path. Like, Super Broly is actually really, really wholesome and really tragic at the same time. You know, the more I talk about it, the more I do want to move him up to A tier. Because he's better than Cooler. So with that, I'm actually going to move Cooler down to B tier. And if we're moving him down to B tier, we got to put him behind Janemba. I've talked myself into it. And now we have Goku. And for Goku, we're just going to do this. I feel like that's fair. I'm glad he's not just a berserker anymore. Me too. Based on design, I like Super Broly more. I do kind of miss the blue hair of OG Broly. I thought that was a cool touch. But I think Super Broly just... I don't know. He feels more personable. He feels more like a fleshed out character. Goku just gets his own tier because Goku basically runs this shit. This is Goku's whole show. Like, everything is Goku. Everything is about Goku. So I feel like there's no point in trying to rank him because I do think he's an S tier character because of all the stuff he's gone through, all the stuff he's accomplished, all the ways he's grown. The show is basically just Goku and friends. So he gets his own tier the way Yamcha gets his own tier at the bottom. But now I'm curious, where would you guys... Dragon Ball Goku. Yep. Dragon Ball G. That's what this show is called. So now I'm going to ask you guys, where would you guys put characters, like wherever you see them? Who would you move around and where would you put them? I'm always curious when we wrap up how you guys would do things. Do you think Goku is as bad of a father as people say he is, or do you disagree and think he's a good father to his kids? He spends most of his time dead, so I'd say Piccolo's a better father to his kids than Goku is. Goku has a good moment with Gohan at the end of the Cell games, but beyond that, I mean, he's an okay dad in Super sometimes, but I feel like Goku's Goku. He's never really going to be like Father of the Year. I don't think he's not the best dad, but he does care about his kids in his own way. Dragon Ball GT stands for Goku's show. Oh my goodness. Honestly, if he wasn't the main character, Goku would be B tier to me. In Dragon Ball, he's S tier definitely. I think I'd probably still put him in S tier just because Goku's an iconic character. He doesn't get the same growth as like Vegeta or Trunks or even Gohan, but Goku's Goku. That's why it's hard to rank him. So if he's S tier in Dragon Ball and B tier everywhere else, I'd probably average him out and put him in A tier in by that logic. But no, Goku's Goku. I can't in like good faith try to argue where he would be because I'm so biased here. Why is Cell S tier? Because I feel like Cell is a great villain. So what really sells Cell, wow, what really gets Cell up into that category is, one, his introduction is awesome. He brings a tone shift with him that kind of has like horror vibes to it, like very horror, very serial killer vibes. And after the stuff with the androids and Frieza, it's kind of hard to pin down like just how dark the tone is going to get, because he shows up, he starts drinking people, like people are like legit just dying left and right. He's killing entire cities of people. Imperfect Cell, like second form Cell, I don't really I feel like he's the least interesting, but Perfect Cell has kind of that Frieza type eloquence to him while still being an interesting mixture of all the personalities whose DNA make him up. So he has the patience of Goku, because of course he wants to, well, he has I wouldn't say patience, he has the urge to fight everyone when they're in peak form, which is the reason for the Cell games, because that's the Goku in him. He talks so much shit and talks down to everybody because that's the Vegeta in him. He's as intelligent and as strategic and patient as he is because that's the Gohan in him. He can regenerate because that's the Piccolo in him. Like, there's so much that goes into making Perfect Cell the personality that he is, and it all plays very well together. Based on the way the manga is going right now, I would put some characters higher up, but yeah. Goku is a Paragon character, so I respect him. Which version of Cell is my favorite? If we're talking strictly Dragon Ball Z proper, probably Base Cell, because I feel like Base Cell does a lot, whereas Perfect Cell is cool and all. He has my favorite design, but he just does a lot of standing around. But if we're talking about Dragon Ball Z abridged, Perfect Cell. I really like Cell's first form a lot. Yeah, Cell's first form, it feels as alien as it's supposed to. Whereas as he goes on and absorbs 17 and 18, he becomes more and more humanoid. And I think that kind of detracts from like the terror factor. Cell with lips was weird. It was weird and borderline offensive. Favorite Frieza form? Probably first form Frieza. I feel like first form Frieza has the most personality. It's how we're introduced to Frieza. It has the most design went into it, I feel. If not perfect, if not first form Frieza, then probably Mecha Frieza. Because I just like the idea of Frieza having a bunch of spare parts sticking out of him. I love how much he was like a horror movie monster. Cell's first form, yes, very much so. I agree, first form Cell genuinely felt unsettling to me, but when he becomes perfect, he loses his motivation, which makes him less interesting. Yeah, because by the time he's perfect Cell, he's just ready to punch people, versus first form Cell is literally a monster going around murdering people. I wish they had maintained the horror vibe, but as it goes on, it devolves into he looks more and more human, and then it becomes more and more about the punchy fighty. First and third form is my personal favorite Frieza. Third form Frieza is the H.R. Geiger looking one, right? Because second form is just a bigger version of first form, I believe. I didn't really care too much about third form. I thought third form was kind of, it felt out of place. I know they were trying to go for more alien design, but like, it didn't really sell me. I like the idea that Cell is just a monster going off of instinct. Yes. Until he starts evolving, and then it falls right back into typical Dragon Ball Z stuff. Final and Golden Form Frieza all the way. I do like Golden Form Frieza. Second form looks nearly identical to King Cold. Yeah, that might have been the point, honestly. Or maybe maybe Akira Toriyama's like, I don't really want to design a whole new character. I'm just gonna grab second form Frieza and do some stuff. I really wish they had kept Cell in his first form. It really would have made him more of an intimidating villain. I agree. I agree 100%. But here is our tier list, guys. Guys and gals. Ladies and fellasmen. Yeah, I feel pretty confident in this list. I'm sure there's arguments to be made to move people up or down, but like I said, and like I always say, art is subjective and you're allowed to feel the way you feel about it. No matter what I think of these characters, your feelings about these characters are still valid. If Frieza is really a clone of King Cold, his second form makes sense. True. Android 16 have 0 win and 3 losses, just like Shiatsu. Oh wow, I didn't realize that. I'm glad you like Euronymous. I know you showed up a bit late, but of course it'll be up on the channel. I'll probably put all of these in their own distinct playlist, so they're not just like floating around the channel. I know you mentioned that you wanted to see like a Rurouni Kenshin characters tier list, but I need to rewatch that before I can give it like a decent tier list video. And I also think there's stuff to talk about in Rurouni Kenshin that's deserving of like just a video in general, so we'll probably dip a lot into Rurouni Kenshin. Oh, thanks for the subscription, Des. What do you guys think the next tier list should be? So we've done Yu Yu Hakusho, done Hunter x Hunter, we've done this. We could dive into Bleach, we could dive into Naruto. I'll think of other shonen anime. I'm open to suggestions. So if we dive into a Naruto tier list, I'm going to stop before Boruto, because I haven't watched Boruto. I don't know if there's enough characters in Vinland Saga to really justify that. Because I do like Vinland Saga. I like it a lot. But I don't know if there's enough characters there to make it interesting, you know? Do you remember much of Hajime no Ippo? I remember most of the series. I just don't remember the characters' names. I'd have to look their names up, but once I haven't seen... It hasn't been that long since I've seen Ippo. Zoran was actually the one that suggested it to me. I watched it after the first time I watched Haikyuu. Yeah, you came in at the tail end, Ball is Life. You just missed it. Can you do a poll for us to vote? Yeah, I'll do one on the community page, because I don't have a widget set up for chat right now. Do Bleach after 1,000 Year Blood War? Honestly, by then I probably won't care. Because 1,000 Year Blood War is not even gonna... It doesn't even air until October, and it's probably gonna air for a hot minute. So I might do everything up until 1,000 Year Blood War. A Berserk tier list. So that one's equally tricky, because I've seen a bit of Baki. I'm actually not a fan of Baki. I don't know if it's the art style or the storytelling, but it just didn't click with me. As for Berserk, that one's a little tricky because the anime, the OG anime is fantastic, but the continuation from like 2016 or 2017 or whatever is kind of hard to watch, and I haven't finished the manga, so I can't pull manga characters from that. So that one's a little tricky. My Little Pony, oof, trying to kill me. I'll put up a few suggestions on the community tab in a poll, and you guys can vote, or you can leave comments in the suggestions. Because like honestly, what'll happen is, however you guys vote, I'll end up doing every tier list anyway, or like at least the ones that I know enough about, and then like how people vote will just determine the order of which I do it, you know? Inuyasha or Soul Eater tier list? A Soul Eater tier list might be good. Inuyasha, I don't care about most of the characters in Inuyasha. And honestly, Sesshomaru is best boy, so everyone else is relevant to me. But Soul Eater, maybe even Fire Force. Or I could probably do both of those at the same time. Dude, I'm hyped for the next season of Fire Force. I've never actually seen Black Lagoon. I might have to put that on the watch list. Would a Death Note tier list be interesting? Do you think? I feel like for the most part, a lot of people agree on like the characters where they fall in Death Note. I mean, I'd be willing to. Maybe even High School of the Dead character. I'd have to rewatch High School of the Dead. I haven't seen that in years. I mean, I remember watching that on Netflix like years and years ago. Should have 2 parts, one for Naruto and one for Shippuden. I'd be willing to break those up into 2 just to make my life easier. Because having to do all of those Naruto characters at once would probably kill me. Oh, I'd like to see who you think was the better L successor. That's a good question. That's a good question, because I think Nier and Mello are both good characters. You gotta watch Black Lagoon. I'll put it on the watch list. There's a lot of stuff that I know I need to watch. Like, I know I need to watch, so... You just gotta remind me, like, drop it in the Discord channel and I'll 100% watch it. What about a Black Clover tier list? Do any of you care about Black Clover? Because like I said, I'm willing to do whatever, like as long as I have knowledge of it. Would you do a Devilman tier list? But that one that's based... I'd have to read the manga though, and I don't have time to read manga. I barely have time to work on videos between like work and social obligations. That's why the Three Kings stuff is taking so long. Like, it legit feels like there's never enough time in the day. Like, if I could stream full-time, or if I could do YouTube full-time, then I'd have more time to do stuff like this, where I could actually just work out videos and stream and do tier list videos. Yeah, actually, Yu Yu Hakusho tier list was the very first tier list we did. It should be on the channel. I mean, I hope to get to a point sometime, maybe by the end of this year or early next year, where I can do YouTube or stream full time. That way I can just like really lean into making the content I want to make, because having to spend the first half of my day at work really eats into any energy I have to be productive in my creative fronts. Like I mentioned earlier that I've written 3 books. I still have 3 more to go, and I just haven't had the time or the energy to do any writing. And I finished my 3rd book over a year and a half ago. but work has just kept me busy. And when I get home, I don't have the energy to do any of the creative things I want to do. And not to mention that in the near future, me and my tattoo artist are starting a podcast. So that's going to eat up some time in the week. But it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to that. Can you explain why Hiei is B tier? So Hiei is in B tier because despite how cool of a character Hiei is, I don't think Hiei gets interesting until the Three Kings arc, when we actually dive into his backstory and we get to see why he is the way he is, how he got his powers, how he fell from being like an A tier or B tier demon down to a D tier demon, and how that affects him mentally. Stuff like that is fascinating, but none of it really comes up before that arc, and it's a lot of wasted potential. And you don't really notice it until the anime starts telling you about Hiei on a more personal level. Then you're like, oh man, I would have loved to have known this way sooner, because every other character gets solid growth. Yusuke, Kurama, Kuwabara, hell, even Genkai gets growth. But Hiei's just kind of there to be like the badass, the mysterious one, the cool guy with the dragon. He doesn't really get any like character moments to shine. And I think that kind of holds him back from being an A or S tier character. Because in Three Kings, Hiei is one of the most fascinating characters. Like, I'm actually really looking forward to talking about Hiei in that arc. I actually think Hiei is more interesting than Yusuke in that arc. So, have you ever watched the Invincible animated series? Oh yeah, I love Invincible. It's both funny and refreshingly brutal. Man, you a busy guy. Yeah, dude. I stay busy. And when I'm not busy, I'm trying to engage with like my social life. So I'm trying to like make sure I make time for my friends and my family. Like two of my friends actually were in chat not too long ago. The one that was talking about his stepson at the baseball game. Old friend of mine, reconnected recently. And then Chloe is another good friend of mine. And like, I always try to make time for the people that I talk to, so that like, no matter how busy I get during the day, I find time to like watch anime with them or play video games with them. But trying to balance all of those things, like trying to juggle all of these balls without enough free time to properly do so, it gets tiring, but it also gets discouraging because I hate waiting. I hate making you guys wait for content, which is why I started streaming these tier lists, so that you guys had something to watch while you guys were waiting for like the Three Kings video, because that's still a ways off, because I still have to like finish taking my notes. I still have to write a script, and then it's being a content creator that does video essays and video analysis is more time consuming than you think, especially when you consider that I don't have a video editor. And like, I've had a couple of people step forward and volunteer to be editors, but I'm caught in this weird position where I need an editor, but I want whoever picks up the work to be as good or better than me at editing my stuff. Because like, if you can't demonstrate that you're better than me or on par with my editing traits, then I'm not going to give you the job, because I can just edit it better myself, you know? No rush at all. I'm just chilling. I know you're chilling, Chloe. You're good. Just found you after watching the Chapter Black essay. Well, welcome to the party, dude. There are several Three Kings videos coming. It's just gonna take I hope they're out before the summer ends. I'm hoping that they're done. At least one of them is done by mid to late July. I love Invincible as well. It's an amazing series. I'd probably go as far as to say it's better than the comic series. I heard the graphic novel is pretty good though. Off topic, but I'm working on making my own comics. Any advice on being an independent creator and writer? So the advice I can give you as a writer is no. So I can give you a few pieces of advice. First and foremost, don't rush your project. Make sure you understand your characters. And what I mean by that is make sure that your characters are making decisions that they would make. Because it's easy to write yourself into a corner and be like, okay, well, I need this to happen, so I'm going to make this character do something that's slightly out of character because I need the plot to move forward. If you're working on a project like that revolves around narrative storytelling, don't feel like you need to stick to a set in stone outline for your story, because your story is going to change. Your story is going to evolve in ways you didn't see fit. It's going to evolve in ways you didn't see coming, because you're going to have ideas as you flesh out your characters. You're like, okay, well, this character wouldn't actually do this. They would probably actually do this. And that's going to pivot your character. And it's going to pivot your story. So lean into that, because I had an outline for my first book, and by the time I was like halfway through the book, I just threw it out because I started writing on feeling instead of having to follow a strict outline. Next piece of advice I can give you is if it's a contained story, like if you're not globetrotting or anything, don't try to build like a big, huge world. Build a world that's necessary for you to tell your story, but put enough in it that the world feels alive. Like, because world building doesn't have to be gigantic. It just has to fit the story you're telling. The hardest piece of advice I can give you is don't be afraid to show people your work and ask for an opinion. And on top of that, don't be too proud or afraid to take criticism, because you're going to run into moments where you think something is really good and you're really proud of it, but someone that's reading over it might not think the same. Because you have to remember, you're not writing, to an extent, you're not writing for yourself. You're writing for an audience. So just keep in mind who your audience is. And don't be afraid to pivot a bit. Because I've had to change plenty of stuff in both my writing style and my books, because my writing editor, she was like, hey, this doesn't really fit here, or this is a bit wordy, or this doesn't make much sense, or sometimes like I just don't like this. But you just have to be open to change and open to criticism, because you can't get better as a creator in any facet if you are too stubborn to take criticism. You should definitely do an Invincible tier list. I will look into that. I would have to rewatch the show. I know that one chick that Mark was dating, definite D tier. The black chick, nah, definite D tier. Dropping gems right now. I'm just, hey, as someone that's spent a lot of time wanting to be a creative person and then trying my hand at it, it's hard. It's harder than it seems. When it comes to creative writing, things are bound to change with your ideas the more you craft your narrative. Exactly. Your ideas are going to change based on just how you're living your life and like how you experience things and how you come to understand new concepts. And just you as a person in general, how you grow is going to change and bleed into your writing. Thanks, man. I've been working on my story for years. I can't wait to get my work out there. I can't wait for you to get out there either. I hope that it comes to a point where I can check it out. I was working on my story for a long time too, and like that's what it takes. That's exactly what it takes. Some people are skilled enough or talented enough to write a book in one go and just toss it out there, and I'm not that person. I like to take the time to really hammer out what I'm doing. Something that I did that I don't know if you do this either is whenever I'm working on one of my books, the first thing I figure out is where the story ends for that book. Like, what is the story beat that I want to conclude this book? Like, I know the ending of each one of my entries. Hell, I know how the overall story is going to end, and it's just a matter of getting the characters there. Those are like the only points where I'm like set in stone, because they kind of give me a guidepost of where I need to go and how I need to get there. But everything in between is always constantly in flux. Yeah, Amber, the girl Mark dated. Yeah, she's the worst. Hated her. I got my ending set. It's the very beginning. I struggle. Yeah, getting going is always difficult. Always difficult. But once you get going, like, unless you're having like a writer's block type day, once you get going, it's pretty easy to just keep writing. I just need to carve out time to write. That's my biggest problem. Like, I've got all the details in my brain. I'm always thinking about my writing and what I want to do with characters. Just don't have time. Just don't have time. But yeah, that was the tier list. It was good talking to you guys. It's always nice having you guys here to chat to. For those of you that might not be, don't forget we have a Discord server where I'm more active on Discord just in general. Like, I'm gonna hop off here and hop right on Discord to play games. I can usually be found on Discord, if not personally, then in the Discord server, because I do have notifications for that server still turned on, so that I'm always seeing when you guys are posting. Or worst case scenario, you can just hit me up personally or at me. Hopefully I catch the stream next time. Yeah, I try to post when I'm going to do the stream in the community tab, but I also started posting, like, I'll do an announcement in the Discord server, usually about like an hour, maybe 2 hours before. And then right before I go live, I hit up on Discord and say I'm going live. So if you want to be here for a whole stream, the best way to make sure you can do so is just be part of the Discord server. We're slowly growing community, but we're getting there. We've got good people in there. It's also where I take suggestions for video content. I will definitely put up that poll on the community tab so you guys can vote on what kind of tier list you want to see next Saturday. And that's all I got for you guys tonight. I was also toying around with the idea of streaming on Twitch, because I want to play games while chatting with you guys, but I don't want to play games on this YouTube channel, you know? There should be a link to the Discord in the community tab somewhere. I will post another invite here though. There's an invite to the Discord server. I'll be sure to post Discord links and like all of my content going forward so you guys can just find it. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good night. I'm still in the process of setting up my Twitch, but I would like to eventually start streaming on Twitch so that I can still chat with you guys while I'm playing games instead of having to, you know, just kind of dip out randomly, because I want to keep this channel for just talking and like discussion videos or like these streams where I chat with you guys about anime stuff. I don't want to clog this channel up with me doing gaming stuff. Like I had a gaming channel and trying to keep up with trends on there was awful. I'd rather just do what I want to do at my own pace. So I'm gonna set up a Twitch account. I mean, I have one. I just got to set up the actual like stuff. But thanks again for coming out, guys. It was a blast. I will see you guys next week, or I'll see you on Discord, whichever happens first. You guys make sure you take care of yourselves and others, and I will see you around.